Good evening, and welcome to the latest happenings inside our federal machine.
It's Wednesday, February 25th, 2026. It's Spathon with another episode of The Swamp. Last night, President Trump delivered the longest State of the Union address in American history, and the Democrats gave their rebuttal to Trump's State of the Union, which received a grand total of 259,000 views across the 5 main YouTube channels that broadcasted it, and they are the Associated Press, ABC News, Fox35 Orlando, PBS NewsHour, and even LiveNOW From Fox. The official view count for last night's State of the Union hasn't been officially released yet, but last year's total was 36.6 million people. So we will be checking out the Democrats' rebuttal video, and also we'll be looking at some of the individual Democrat responses from last night. And President Trump tasked Vice President JD Vance with heading up the government's war on widespread fraud. And today, JD Vance gives a statement detailing his upcoming plans. Also today, Senator Jim Banks introduces the Delilah Act into the Senate, which will effectively ban all illegal immigrants from obtaining CDL licenses. Also, Senator Mike Lee reminded Americans of a 2014 New York Times article which describes pedophilia as a disorder, not a crime. Elon Musk shared the senator's post, which reached over 61 million views. Also, Secretary Marco Rubio is immediately back to work after the State of the Union, visiting with the prime ministers of the Caribbean island nations of Trinidad and Tobago, also St. Kitts and Nevis. And we're going to check out a few more things in between, but there's still a lot that happened today, so we're going to dive straight in. And if you enjoyed the video, please give the video a quick like if you get a second, and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the daily updates. Ring the bell and whatever it is that people do these days. Pretty sure we're still ringing the bell, aren't we? And if you leave a comment below, I might just read it on tomorrow's episode. Also, every article that you will see in the video will be linked in the description below. But first, I did get a comment from earlier today from Andrew Herman, 5010, and he said that the women's hockey team, Team USA Women's Hockey, they declined to show to the State of the Union last night, according to CNN. Because I did make a mention of that because Trump invited the men's Team USA to the State of the Union. They came out with their gold medals, and it was an awesome spectacle. It was really cool that they showed up. But I kept saying, where are the women? Why aren't the women's team there? Well, turns out, at least according to CNN and Andrew Herman, that they just simply declined to show up. So I didn't find the article for CNN. Granted, I didn't look very hard. I came across NBC News, and it looked like it was going to cover basically the same thing. So I grabbed that, and I'll include that. According to them, they had a scheduling conflict, as if 35 or 40 million eyeballs it's just not up there at the top of the list for them, apparently. I just kind of find that a little peculiar. So we'll get to that here in just a few minutes. But first, from RNC... Oh, wait, here we go. Hold on. I got to move over to the other tab. There we go. Now we're in business. Chairman Joe Gruder's America is back. From the White House, nearly 2/3 of viewers of the State of the Union think we're heading in the right direction, and we're not stopping here. 64% of speech watchers say President Trump's policies will move the country in the right direction, according to none other than CNN. Fantastic news. That's great news. And Trump's approval numbers, I believe, according to CNN, was sitting at 50, maybe 51%. The last time that they ran that poll, I think it was like a week or two ago. So I can only imagine that this is going to bump up Trump's approval numbers just by a little bit more, because that was a hell of a State of the Union last night. It was absolutely incredible. The longest one, man. And from Caroline Levitt, Trump's policies will move the U.S. in the right direction. Pre-speech, it was at 54%. Post-speech, of course, 64%. And let's see what this one is. Okay, so is the country being moved in the right direction among speech voters? Right direction, 64. The wrong direction, 36%. So absolutely good numbers. Could certainly be higher. I think if they polled people who are paying attention to politics on a daily basis, regardless if they're on the left or the right, it probably would have been a much higher number, because he touched on a lot of obviously very important things that would be damn near impossible to argue against, unless you're a Democrat, of course. So from Caroline Levitt, President Trump continues to make history, the longest presidential speeches in front of Congress. President Trump now holds both of them from his 2025 State of the Union. He did his speech for exactly 100 minutes, and last night, of course, was 108 minutes. And they've been keeping track since 1964. So perhaps there was a president in the past, maybe pre-1964, that did give a State of the Union that may have gone on longer than 1964. But As it stands right now, in recent history, President Trump holds two of the longest ones. I have a feeling that maybe he tried to do, or he intended to do, the longest speech, possibly because it's America's 250th birthday. We got to do everything big this year. Or it could just be simply there was just so much that happened over the last year. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of things that were on President Trump's plate throughout 2025. And I thought it was, frankly, kind of crazy that he was able to cram all of that into a 108-minute speech. Okay, so let's move on to the women's team USA declining Trump's invitation to the State of the Union. And it says, here, let's just get straight into it. So the U.S. Women's Olympic Hockey Team said it is declining President Trump's invitation to attend his State of the Union address a day after the president jokingly told the U.S. men's hockey team that he would be impeached if he didn't also invite the women's team. Quote, "We are sincerely grateful for the invitation extended to our gold medal winning U.S. women's hockey team and deeply appreciate the recognition for their extraordinary achievement," a USA Hockey spokesperson said. Due to the timing and previously scheduled academic and professional commitments following the games, the athletes are unable to participate. They were honored to be included and are grateful for the acknowledgement, the spokesperson added. Now, I think it would be quite unorthodox if they were to play a video message in the middle of the State of the Union. I don't think that would fly. I just can't help but wonder if maybe they offered that as an option. Like, here, let's just do like a quick 15-second thank you anyway. We're here and we really appreciate it, but whatever. I mean, they couldn't have like maybe just one or two of them representing the team, or maybe the goalie. I don't know. Anyway, the White House did not immediately respond to a request for comment. However, President Trump did say that he has already invited them to the White House, and he said that they're going to be attending in a short period of time. He mentioned that during his speech last night. The U.S. team beat Canada for the gold medal in Thursday's Olympic women's hockey final. Their male counterparts won gold on Sunday, also against Canada. Trump invited the men's team to the State of the Union in a call Sunday night after their overtime victory. It's unclear if the men's team will attend the speech. Okay, so obviously this is an older article because they were there. Indeed, they did show up. All right, so we're going to get into the rebuttal. First, before I get into the content here, let's just watch this rebuttal first from Virginia Governor Spanberger delivering Democrats' rebuttal to Trump's State of the Union, which was last night. This is going to be on CNBC television, so let's give this a go.
Before there was a Declaration of Independence, a Constitution, or a Bill of Rights, there were people in this room. The people who served here ultimately dreamed of what a new nation, unlike anything the world had ever seen, could be. The United States was founded on the idea that ordinary people could reject the unacceptable excesses of poor leadership, band together to demand better of their government, and create a nation that would be an example for the world.
Poor leadership. Which states are the most unaffordable states in the country? Oh yeah, all blue states, all Democrat-led states. That's right.
And this year, as we celebrate 250 years since America declared our independence from tyranny, I can think of no better place to speak to you as we reflect on the current state of our union. Tonight, as we watched our nation's lawmakers gather for a joint session of Congress, we did not hear the truth from our president.
Oh my God, these people have no class at all.
Plainly and honestly. And let me ask you, the American...
No, let me ask this lady. Is she going to offer us any substance this time instead of just broad brushing every single thing that they say? Trump is ruining the economy, the end. He's given money to billionaires. He's taken our health care away and given it to billionaires. Tax cuts. Okay, why don't you just give us an example?
People watching at home.
Let's see if she will. Maybe she will.
Is the president working to make life more affordable for you and your family? Is the president working to keep Americans safe both at home and abroad?
Safe? Dude, he's doing a hell of a lot better job than the Democrats are as far as safety goes. Just look at Washington, D.C., New Orleans, Memphis, the period of time that he had the National Guard going into L.A. Isn't it the crime overall at the lowest level since they started keeping records back in the year 1900 even? 1900, the last 125 years, that crime is currently at its lowest level. I know that's the case 100% for murder. Right now, we've got the lowest national murder rate in the last, a century and a quarter.
Is the president working for you? As I campaigned for governor last year, I traveled to every corner of Virginia, and I heard the same pressing concern everywhere. Costs are too high in housing, healthcare,
Virginia,
energy,
of course
and
they are.
childcare. And I know these same conversations are being had all across this country.
Now, look, I'll agree with her with housing. Housing is incredibly expensive. I was honestly kind of irritated when Trump said that he wants housing values to stay at their current level, if not higher. I'm like, dude, you are completely leaving the younger generations behind. Gen Z, soon to be Gen Alpha, younger millennials, they don't stand a freaking chance, man. Like 85% of Americans are priced out of the housing market right now, and wages are not going to catch up, man. If housing stayed exactly where it is right now, wages might catch up in like 50 years to the point where the average American can afford the average price house right now. It's absolutely ridiculous. And with regard to childcare, a lot of that has to do with the insurance costs being absolutely insane. Also, not to mention all the Somali fraud, not just from the Somalis, but rampant fraud taking place all across the country, which is gouging the hell out of our tax dollars in the name of childcare. So it's no wonder it's gone up so much, because essentially they're just writing blank checks, the government is, to all these childcare facilities, and naturally, the costs are going to go up, especially the insurance premiums.
Because since this president took office last year, his reckless trade policies have forced American families to pay more than $1,700 each in tariff costs. Small businesses have suffered, farmers have suffered, some losing entire markets. Everyday Americans
I'll fact check that
are paying the
1,700 number.
price. And even though the Supreme Court struck these tariffs down 4 days ago, the damage to us, the American people, has already...
They only struck down the IEEPA tariffs, the IEEPA tariffs. All of the other tariffs that Trump had implemented, they're all still in effect. They weren't affected by the Supreme Court at all.
Been done. Meanwhile, the president is planning for new tariffs, another massive tax hike on you and your family. And Republicans in Congress, they remain unwilling to assert their constitutional authority to stop him. They're making your life harder. They're making your life more expensive. They're even making it more difficult to see a doctor. Rural health clinics in Virginia and across the country are already closing their doors thanks to the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill, championed by the president and Republicans in Congress. And tonight, the president celebrated this law.
That's why a lot of people got kicked off of Medicaid.
Rural
They were on it
hospitals, stripping
fraudulently.
health care for millions of Americans and driving up costs in energy and housing, all while cutting food programs for hungry kids. But here in Virginia, I am working with our state legislature to lower costs and make the Commonwealth more affordable.
I guarantee you, I would make a Vegas bet that a year from now, the average cost of living in Virginia will not be cheaper than it is right now. It's only going to go up. Democrats, look, the last Democrat president in office that signed any bill that lowered taxes for Americans was in 1952. And I've already looked that up. I fact-checked that about a week ago on The Swamp.
And it's not just me. Democrats across the country are laser focused on affordability in our nation's capital and in state capitals and communities across America. In the most innovative and exceptional nation in the history of the world, Americans deserve to know that their leaders are focused on addressing the problems that keep them up at night. Problems that dictate where you live, whether you can afford to start a business, or whether you have to skip a prescription in order to buy groceries. So I'll ask again, is the president working to make life more affordable for you and your family? We all know the answer is no.
Doing a lot better than Biden.
I grew up in a house of service. My mother was a
They
nurse.
just assumed that we just completely
and my
forgot
father
about the
was
Biden
a career
era.
law enforcement officer. I began my career by following in my father's footsteps as a federal agent working money laundering and narcotics cases. I worked side by side with local and state police to keep our community safe and to uphold and enforce the law. Law enforcement officers across the country know that it is a unique responsibility to do the serious work of investigating crimes, comforting victims, and making arrests.
Yeah, but defund the police, though,
trust, right? And that requires an abiding sense of
Don't forget about Black Lives Matter. You got to keep them included.
Community. And yet, our president has sent poorly trained federal agents into our cities where they have arrested and detained American citizens and people who aspire to be
rioters and protesters.
Americans.
Yeah, we're pretty well aware of that.
They have done it without a warrant.
Obstruction.
They have ripped nursing mothers away from their babies.
They've all gotten orders of removal that were adjudicated by immigration judges.
Sent children, a little boy in a blue bunny hat, children to far-off detention centers.
Who was abandoned by his father in the cold.
Killed American citizens in our streets. And they have done it all with their faces masked from accountability.
Protesters, they all wear masks
Every
too.
minute spent sowing fear is a minute not
Plus
spent
the agents are getting
investigating murders, crimes against children, or the criminals defrauding seniors of their life savings. Our president
Democrat
told
cities.
us tonight
Yeah, the
that we are
Somalis.
safer.
Hell yeah, they're defrauding them.
Because these agents arrest mothers and detain children? Think about that. Our broken immigration system is something to be fixed, not an excuse for
Democrats didn't fix it, they broke it.
agents to terrorize our
That's another tactic by Democrats. They break the system and then they offer solutions, but they offer it in extremely vague terms. We need to fix our immigration system. No elaboration whatsoever. We need this, we need that, with no elaboration.
communities.
Yeah, let's just clap and pretend that she told us how she's going to fix immigration.
After working in law enforcement, I continued my career of service as a CIA officer, working undercover to protect the United States and our allies from global threats, terrorism, nuclear weapons, and the aggression
she's probably the one behind all
adversarial
these Democrat
nations around
psyops.
the globe. But as the president spoke of his perceived successes
Be an
tonight,
obedient little
he
NPC.
continues to cede economic power and technological strength to Russia, bow down to China, bow down to a Russian dictator.
Yes,
and
Democrats
make
do bow
plans
down to China.
for war
Remember when Obama
with
did
Iran.
that? When was that, 2009?
Here's the truth. Over the last year, through DOJ, mass firings, and the appointment of deeply unserious people to our nation's most serious positions, our president has endangered the long and
DOJ has saved us, what,
history
$300
of the
billion so far?
United States of America being a force for good. So I'll ask again, is the president working to keep Americans safe, both at
Yes.
home and abroad?
Yes.
We all know the answer is no. In his speech tonight, the president did what he always does. He lied, he scapegoated,
He mic
and he
dropped.
distracted.
That's what he does.
And he offered
Lots of mic
no
drops.
real
These people are
solutions
crazy.
to our nation's pressing challenges, so many of which he is actively making worse. He tries to divide us. He tries to enrage us, to pit us
Yeah, the
against
Democrats
one
aren't
another,
dividing us.
neighbor
Yeah, okay.
against neighbor. And sometimes he succeeds. And so you have to ask, who benefits from his rhetoric, his policies, his actions, the short list of laws he's
illegal
pushed
immigrants
through
certainly
this
don't.
Republican Congress? Somebody must be benefiting. He's enriching himself, his family, his friends. The scale of the corruption is
Nancy Pelosi isn't
unprecedented.
doing it. Elizabeth
There's
Warren
the
isn't
cover-up
doing
of
it.
the Epstein files, the crypto scams.
Of course, Democrats are not
cozying
enriching
up
themselves.
to foreign
At a
princes
probably
for
much higher rate
airplanes
than
and
Republicans.
billionaires for ballrooms, putting his name and face
Ballroom's
on
not
buildings
taxpayer funded.
all over our
Nice try.
nation's capital. This is not what our founders envisioned, not by a long shot.
Yeah, because no president has ever done any upgrades to the White House
So
ever.
I'll ask again, is the president working for you?
Oh my God, this
We
is so
all
cringe.
know the answer is no.
We all know it's
But
no.
here's the special thing about America.
Just
On our
take a massive whiff of
250th
that
anniversary, we know better than any nation what is possible when ordinary citizens, like those who once dreamed right here in this room, reject the unacceptable and demand more of their government. We see it in the determination of students organizing school walkouts all across the country, whose voices are becoming so
breaking the
powerful
law
that the
by playing
governor of
hooky.
Texas seeks
Truancy.
to silence them. We see it
I
in the
thought she was all about
bravery
law
of
enforcement.
Americans in Minnesota
We advocate for our
standing
students.
up for their communities, from
commit
peacefully
truancy.
protesting in sub-zero temperatures to carpooling children to school so that their immigrant parents are not ripped away from them in the parking lot.
Illegal immigrants.
As a mother of
71% of
3 school-aged
Americans,
daughters,
or no,
I am
76%.
inspired by their
In
bravery.
favor.
But I am sickened that it is necessary. And Americans across the country are taking action. They are going to the ballot box to reject this chaos. With their votes, they are writing a new story, a more hopeful story. In November, I won my election by 15 points.
Yeah, in blue Virginia, that's not a shocker.
And we won 13 new seats in our state legislature. Because voters decided they wanted something different.
How many people are in this room? It sounds like 17 people.
From Democrats, Republicans, independents, and everyone in between. Because they knew as citizens they could demand more, that they could vote for what they believe matters, and that they didn't need to be constrained by a party or political affiliation. This is happening across the country. New Jersey elected Mikey Sherrill as governor in a double-digit victory.
Yeah, it's New Jersey, duh.
Democrats flipped state legislative seats in places like Georgia, Iowa, Mississippi, and Texas. The list goes on and on. Ordinary Americans are stepping up to run in the spirit of our forefathers. They are running to demand more and to do more for their neighbors and communities. I know the story well. I first ran for office in 2018 alongside dozens of other Democrats who did the seemingly impossible, flipping 41 seats in Congress. In my case, I was the first Democrat elected in 50 years, swinging our district 17 points. Those who are stepping up now to run will win.
Certainly helps with ballot harvesting.
Because Americans
and all the mail-in ballots
know you can demand more, and that we are working to lower costs. We are working to keep our communities and our country safe.
Look, man, Republicans, they got to beat them at their own game.
Are working for you.
If they insist on ballot harvesting, Republicans, you all know what to do. You got to fight fire with fire. They're going to do that.
In his farewell address, George Washington warned us about the possibility of, quote, cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men rising to power. But he also encouraged us, all Americans, to unite in a common cause, to move this nation forward. That
he didn't see the rise of women coming.
And that
the
is
liberal
what
white
we are
woman,
seeing
right, Malcolm
across
X?
the country. It is deeply American and patriotic to do so, and it is how we ensure that the state of our union remains strong. Not just this year, but for the next 250 years as well, because we, the people, have the power to make change, the power to stand up for what is right, the power to demand more of our nation.
I'm surprised she hasn't said democracy.
May God bless the Commonwealth of Virginia, and may God bless the United States of America.
All right, well, I got to hand it to her. She was a bit classy about it. I mean, she could have just gone off the complete deep end, which I was halfway expecting. I wasn't fully expecting any, there's a reason they probably had Spanberger and not Timu Obama Hakeem Jeffries, because he would have said Donald Trump about 50,000 times, following it up with our democracy about 416,000 times. So anyway, of course, it was a very carefully calculated speech. So she posted this last night. Governor Abigail Spanberger, the scale of this president's corruption is unprecedented. The cover-up of the Epstein files, crypto scams, cozying up to the billionaires for ballrooms. It's crystal clear the president is working for himself, not the American people. Of course, that's the speech, so we're not going to get into the speech itself because we just watched it. Anyway, Brian Allen says, Hakeem Jeffries just put it plainly. Trump said Iran's nuclear program was completely and totally obliterated. Now he's talking about striking again. So which is it? Was he lying then or is he lying now? Because you don't get to fake mission accomplished and then drag America toward another forever war. And Donald Trump has no credibility left to explain it. Yeah, because how many wars has he ended so far? What is it? Are we up to 10 now? 9 or 10? Something like that. But yeah, he's got no credibility at all. So anyway, here, let's go ahead and just watch this first. Timu Obama. Let's observe why they didn't pick him to do the rebuttal speech.
People are of the view. First of all, let's be clear about Iran. There was a military strike executed by Donald Trump last year. We were told that the nuclear program in Iran had been completely and totally obliterated. Not my words, Donald Trump's words. And so now we're to believe that there's an exigent circumstance where Donald Trump may need to strike militarily in order to prevent Iran, presumably, from achieving its nuclear ambitions. Wait, what happened to Iran's nuclear program being completely and totally obliterated? Donald Trump's words, not our words. Clearly, he was lying to the American people, or he's lying right now.
Yeah, because it's impossible to rebuild anything.
That he can say to the American people that will have any degree of
because Iran totally doesn't have connections in Russia and China.
I'm interested, and I'll listen to what members of his administration are going to say at this secure briefing. But I also plan to press them on the claim that Donald Trump himself made about the Iranian nuclear program and what the great urgency is right now that you've assembled an armada, potentially dragging America into another failed, foreign, forever war that is doomed to hurt the American people, not help us. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Well, he definitely likes the caliphate. He certainly loves the global sponsor of terrorism. He doesn't want that to go off the rails. He wants to keep that gravy train going in Iran. Which, speaking of which, like, Iran's like, well, that does it. There's nothing more we can do. No more nuclear ambitions forever. We can't rebuild. We don't know how to rebuild anything. I mean, come on, dude. What a fucking idiot. So anyway, yeah, I can only imagine what these comments are going to be looking like. This is not political theater. It's about risking lives. If earlier obliterated claims are wrong or premature, that matters. Before any talk or strikes, demand transparency, independent oversight, and an honest briefing for the public and Congress. I mean, pretty base comment, if I'm being honest. I don't like the idea that we're putting entire fleets of ships right off the Iranian coast. I get the whole peace through strength thing, and he wants to make a deal with Iran. I mean, I get it. I'm not so sure if they're going to really go to the table. But look, I mean, he's already brokered deals all over the world. And I know that Iran has one hell of an economical advantage to come to the table because they've dealt with rampant inflation over the last year, over 100%. It was like 140% over the last year. So I get it. I just, yeah. I mean, if are we going to be dragged into a forever war? Maybe not, probably not. Although Iran is a way different animal than Iraq was, but we've got way different levels of technology now. I mean, who knows? Anyway, you know what? I'm just going to go to the next one because we've got a lot of these to get through. I planned on just checking through the comments a little bit here and there, but I probably don't have time for that. Anyway, Senate Democrats watch Senator Ruben Gallego lay it out. Trump has made this country sicker and poorer.
What we're going to hear tonight is very simple. This president has made this country sicker and poorer. And if you look at every way that has occurred, it has been deliberate.
Of course, it wasn't Biden who did that.
Number one, what did this president do as soon as he got in? He went right after Medicaid and started cutting
he went after the fraud, dude.
People in this country.
Fraud,
Why?
waste, and abuse.
Because this president wanted to make sure they had enough money to give the richest of the richest.
Because Democrats want to keep everybody locked into the welfare state forever.
Between,
so you can be obedient little Democrat voters.
Or shall I just risk it and keep going? That president and his Republicans made that choice. There are millions of Americans right now that are suffering. Either they're having to pay more and now they're poorer, or they're not getting health insurance and now they're sicker. That was a decision by this administration. And every day they're making a decision that makes things harder and harder. This president does not care about working class people at all, and he is going to continue to make us sicker and poorer, and that's just what you're going to hear tonight.
I think the Biden administration proved well enough that the Democrats really don't care. They don't give a flying F about the working class. Frankly, I don't think they're doing enough with Medicaid and food stamps. Well, actually, to be fair with food stamps, they're talking about, I don't know if they're actually rolling that out, but they're making everybody reapply to make sure that able-bodied people and people who have no business being on it anymore get off of those food stamp programs. And that's my suggestion with Medicaid. I think they should have everybody reapply, which I'm sure would be a very time-consuming process. However, there's probably a lot of people on it who, frankly, should be working and shouldn't be just sitting in the welfare state. Rep. Pramila Jayapal, it's State of the Union Day today and every day. Stand with survivors. Release the files. All about that victimhood culture. Release the blank files and stand with survivors. And Senator Patty Murray, Trump didn't lift anyone off food stamps. He kicked them off. He's forcing millions to go hungry. By the way, you can work full-time and still qualify for SNAP. My family needed SNAP growing up. It's not charity. It's an investment. Fund SNAP. Reverse the cuts. Yeah, I'm sure you probably could work full-time. If you're making absolute bare minimum wage, I'm pretty sure you would qualify for food stamps. It's just damn near impossible. It's a nightmare to be locked into that system. And minimum wage was never meant for a family of 5 to survive off of. Minimum wage is intended for high schoolers or paper boys, things of that nature. So Aaron Rupar, Trump, in 1 year, we have lifted 2.4 million Americans, a record, off of food stamps. In other words, Republicans cut food stamps. Or those who were receiving food stamps are able-bodied people who have been working above and beyond the requirement that is needed for food stamps, and they just kept reapplying for it, and they were just given it food stamps over and over, year after year, even though they clearly don't qualify for it because they're probably making too much money for it. All right, so anyway, Senator Mark Kelly, no matter how many times Trump says it, other countries aren't paying for tariffs. Americans are. Families trying to buy food at the grocery store are struggling. Well, if that's the case, then why is it that Costco and other companies are suing the federal government right now to get their tariff money back? If it's only families and Americans who are paying for tariffs, then why are these big, massive corporations, why are they suing for millions of dollars? Because it's us that are paying the tariffs, not them. Seniors just trying to pay bills are struggling. Small business owners trying to keep their doors open are struggling. Trump needs to stop pretending the economy is good and start taking action to make it work for the American people. And it's another quote from Trump's State of the Union speech. U.S. Rep. Brittany Pedersen, there's been zero public evidence of widespread fraud in our election system. Yeah, okay. Trump is trying to rig the election before it even happens because he sees the writing on the wall. We don't support his corrupt agenda. Because encouraging ballot harvesting and kicking out Republican poll workers and covering the windows up with brown paper, as what happened in Philadelphia back in 2020. Also, boxes of ballots that were found in ditches contained in mail crates. And I remember Steven Crowder, he compiled a list of registered voter addresses and revealed that those addresses were empty lots. And Nick Shirley, he just revealed in LA that dozens of people are registered to vote at different UPS store locations. Also, the FBI is investigating the Fulton County, Georgia election. They seized 700 boxes of ballots, and we'll just have to see what they turn up with that. If anything, maybe they won't turn up anything, but I have a feeling they probably will. Senator Andy Kim, orange juice is up nearly 30%. Ground beef is up over 15%. Coffee is up almost 20%. Lettuce is up 7.3%. Frozen fish is up 8.6%. Trump wouldn't know affordability if it hit him in the face. Well, a quick comment on the coffee. I think that it did have, tariffs may have had an impact on the coffee. I know that there was a multi-year drought, which was also causing coffee to skyrocket. And of course, these are just cherry-picked. I mean, orange juice, ground beef. I mean, I'm sure if you took a list of 500 other food items, they probably weren't going up all that dramatically in price. And is this year over year? Is this over the last 5 years? Probably over the last 5 years. I do know orange juice has gone up a bit because I drink orange juice every day. Ground beef, yeah, it sounds about right, but they're investigating the big ground beef companies, or the big beef companies right now for price fixing. And lettuce, not so sure about lettuce. I somehow doubt it, but who knows? Maybe frozen fish. Man, honestly, it's a bit much, but who knows? And which, by the way, 85% of all the food we eat and all the beverages we consume, it's all made here in the United States. They're not even subject to tariffs at all. All right, so Aaron Rupar. Okay, so it's just another quote from last night. Rep. Jim McGovern, we don't give a shit. We just want America to get a refund from your stupid illegal tariffs. And Senator Mazie Hirono, tonight Trump spewed lies to distract from the chaos, cruelty, and corruption that have defined his second term. But the facts are clear. Prices are up. Our democracy is under threat, and this regime's only focus is keeping power while enriching Trump and his billionaire buddies. Of course, there's no context, no substance at all. Just blanket statements. And this is her statement tonight. Donald Trump spewed more lies in an attempt to distract from the chaos, cruelty, corruption, and incompetence that have come to define his second term. In Hawaii and across the country, families are living with fear and uncertainty about paying their bills, being torn apart in the safety of our nation, all because of Trump and his lawless regime. I wonder if she was in support of Hawaii's move to remove junk food off of food stamps because they recently were added to that list of states that are no longer going to allow people in Hawaii to buy a bunch of candy and crap with their food stamps. I'm sure she's probably not too happy about that. Despite Trump's empty rhetoric, the facts are clear. Prices are soaring. Our democracy is under threat, and Donald Trump is focused solely on keeping his power and enriching himself and his billionaire buddies. I refuse to sit through 2 hours of his lies, but I will keep standing with families in Hawaii and across the country to lower costs, defend our democracy, and protect our communities. All right, Senator Mark Kelly, every time Trump talks about lowering healthcare costs, remember this. He raised premiums and kicked people off Medicaid. Uh-oh, here we go again. all to pay for tax cuts for the billionaires and the millionaires. Of course, they can never cite exactly where that's happening. You can't claim to lower costs while making seniors and families pay more. And Elizabeth Warren, Donald Trump is the most corrupt president in our nation's history. Dude, last night, C-SPAN kept showing her face, and she was so seething. She could not sit still. She kept like bobbing her head to the left and to the right, like leaning in, acting like she was like paying so close attention, while just ripping her phone out, jumping on Twitter from time to time, just firing off those tweets as fast as she possibly could. All right, so Mark Warner I walked out of the State of the Union because I just couldn't sit through the hours of Trump's lies because he's overly emotional. Americans know the truth. He's spiking prices and he's wrecking our economy. Yeah, because that is so evident at Wall Street, where the Dow Jones has crossed over 50,000, the S&P is over 7,000, which of course is not the best reflection of the middle class. However, those who do own a home, they're rocking and rolling. They're loving the state of the economy right now. Of course, many people who are trying to get a house aren't. But anyway, we're a better country than this. Of course, he doesn't offer any solutions himself either. Senate Democrats, Trump has put our country into crisis and has given a mockery of a State of the Union speech at a time when he is violating people's civil rights and their security in their neighborhoods. And we've got Cory Booker. Okay, thank God, it's only 40 seconds.
This is a president
on MS Now. They got sick of us calling it MSDNC over and over again, so they changed it to MS
put
Now.
Our country into crisis. He is going to have a mockery of a State of the Union speech at a time that he is violating the laws of our land. He's violating people's civil rights and their security and their.
Dude, tell us. Just you got time. Give us 5 seconds. Give us one thing that he's doing that's violating our civil rights. Oh, you mean illegal aliens? Oh, okay.
With his ICE army running into our communities, arresting
people.
He's violating the Constitution by weaponizing the Justice Department and literally going after everybody from the Fed chair to...
Yeah, because Democrats don't weaponize the Constitution. They don't weaponize the First Amendment by declaring everything's hate speech. If it's hate speech, you should be punished for
members of Congress.
That's a criminal act.
This is a man who's grifted off of our
office
in ways in violation of the Emoluments Clause in the Constitution, making over $100 billion. Give him 4 years, he'll make $500 billion after grifting off of his office.
$100 billion. Did he really say that President Trump has made $100 billion? I don't even have to look that up, but you know what? I'm going to entertain it. Let's see. Oh, yeah. And by the way, I forgot to look up, are Americans paying $1,700 more per year because of the tariffs? I mean, matter of fact, Trump, he donates his salary to the Treasury, for crying out loud. No, Donald Trump did not earn $100 billion while in office. During his first presidency, his net worth declined from $3.7 billion to $2.5 billion. So he's losing his net worth. Cory Booker, you fucking idiot. Though his businesses reported over $1.6 billion in outside revenue and income, which he wasn't running his business. He gave it to his kids to run while he was president, which I'm sure he's still doing to this day. In his second term, starting 2025, estimates show major gains from $3 billion net worth increase in 2025 to at least $1.4 billion in profits. I don't see 2 extra zeros there, Cory Booker. And profits tied to the presidency, but nothing approaches $100 billion. His current net worth estimated around $6.5 to $7 billion, far below $100 billion. No credible sources support $100 billion earnings claimed during either term. Look, dude, anybody who's got a net worth of over, even $1 million with an M, not a B, they're substantially increasing their net worth if they've hedged some of their bets into Wall Street, because everything has skyrocketed, especially since COVID. So, all right, so let's take a look at the whole $1,700 thing. All right, so here we go. No, we're not. Not exactly $1,700 per year specifically and ongoing due to tariffs alone, but close estimates exist for the recent period. A February 2026 report from the Joint Economic Committee, Democrats. Oh, okay, so this is from the Joint Economic Committee Democrats, minority staff. The Democrats estimate that American consumers paid over $231 billion in tariff costs from February 2025 to January 26. Roughly 1 year into Trump's second term, averaging $1,745 per household. This figure comes from U.S. Treasury tariff revenue data combined with CBO estimates that U.S. consumers bear more of the burden via higher prices. This claim gained attention after Abigail Spanberger cited a similar $1,700 figure. Yeah, that's exactly why we're here. Other nonpartisan estimates varied. Yale Budget Lab, $1,700 and added annual costs when adjusted for income spending. Yeah, see, look, if we're spending $1,700 more annually than perhaps like this time last year, I'll entertain that. That's a distinct possibility because things are still going up. I mean, maybe look, they say that housing hasn't gone up. I know automotive has certainly gone up a lot. Insurance costs have gone up like crazy. Homeowners insurance has gone up, like insurance across the board. I think that alone would probably account for this $1,700 figure. Highly doubt that it's through tariffs alone. Maybe $100, maybe a couple $100, perhaps. Highly doubt that it's over $1,000. Tax Foundation lower about $1,000 per household for 2025. Some higher projections exist if tariffs continued or expanded. Many of these tariffs imposed via emergency powers were struck down. Okay, yeah, we already know that. $1,700 figure is a reasonable ballpark from credible sources for that period, but estimates differ, and it's not a universal or current per year reality post-ruling. And it grabbed it from PolitiFact, jec.senate.gov. Not familiar where that leads to. The Joint Economic Committee minority. Okay, so these are the Democrats. This is from the Democrats. So, I mean, forgive me for not taking this as the gospel truth, even though, let's see, the source, original JEC calculations using monthly reports by the U.S. Department of the Treasury, the Bureau of the Fiscal Service, the U.S. Census Bureau, 2025 projections on population and estimates of consumer tariff costs from the Congressional Budget Office. Well, that's what they say. Look, I mean, I don't want to go down like that infinite rabbit hole of like, okay, well, where are those sources? And then where are those sources? However, if there were links, I mean, I would sure appreciate being able to go to these sources to see exactly where they're pulling the numbers from. I mean, you'd think with it being a .gov website that they would have done it, but anyway. All right, so was there anything else? Yeah, I don't know, just some, Facebook, Financial Reg News, USA Today, NPR, Business Insider, so on and so forth. All right. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on. So it's been an hour and a half and Donald Trump hasn't said a single thing about childcare. Well, yeah, he did. He talked about the Somali fraud. Yeah, it was during the Somali fraud part. You said you sit on your hands for Irania. Yeah, that happened. If you missed the State of the Union last night, Irania Zarutska, she was the Ukrainian woman that was brutally murdered on the bus in Charlotte with that monster who stabbed her 3 times, killing her. Her mother was at the State of the Union last night, just bawling her eyes out. It was heartbreaking to see. And the Democrats would not stand for her. And what was really appalling about that, and I'm going to get to that here in a little bit, that the Democrats, not only did they not stand up for her mother and for Irania Zarutska, some of the Democrats that were there were wearing Ukraine pins. Because remember when they were all about Ukraine, waving their stupid little Ukraine flags in Congress when Joe Biden was in, some of them were still wearing their little Ukraine lapel pins, and they wouldn't even stand up for Irania Zarutska. It was absolutely ridiculous. Eric Swallowswell, people ask why Trump is a bad president. It's simple, because he's a bad person. Yeah, because Swallowswell isn't a bad person.
I'm Eric Swalwell, and
banging
I'm
Chinese CCP spies.
People often ask me why Trump is such a terrible president. It's simple, because he's a terrible person. There's a book titled Everything Trump Touches Dies, and the sequel should be called...
There's also a book called Art of the Deal.
He says is a lie.
I think it was a bestseller.
What you just heard tonight is absolute nonsense.
Gaslighting.
He says
Can
the
you smell
economy
it?
is growing and adding jobs, but now we know those numbers were all false, and the only
It's
thing
all
that's
fake.
actually rising is the unemployment rate. He says inflation is a hoax, but anyone
Well, yeah,
who's shocked
the unemployment rate is raising for the federal government.
knows this is a joke of the cruelest kind. He says tariffs were great, but to those who still clutch to your faded MAGA hats, let me spell it out for you. That illegal tariff tax cost your family $1,700 or more. He did this because he doesn't care about you. He never has. He doesn't govern for the broke. He governs for the billionaires. He boasts of boundless prosperity, but that's an illusion, built on the silent suffering of the working class. But when Washington shrinks, California expands. We're the 4th largest.
Oh yeah, we're well aware of that.
planet.
Except
And
for
we
your
didn't
population, because they lost 300,000 people last year and their population declined.
get here, like
Of course you don't want to bring that up.
in fiction. We got here by building the future. So let him have his whiny, delusional pity party. Californians are going to do the hard, necessary work of lowering costs on groceries and housing.
Oh, I would love to see that, dude. I would bet you any amount of money. I would bet him personally, name it. I'll give him like 10-to-1 odds that happens. That does not happen. It is never going to happen in California that they're going to lower groceries and housing in California, dude. That is
remind the rest of
laughable.
the country what it looks like when leaders actually
Tell
love
that to the
people they
Pacific
serve.
Palisades,
We are
dude. How's that
Californians.
working out for
The
them?
wave
How many of those
starts
houses
here,
have y'all rebuilt?
and we are just getting started.
Less than 10.
Thank you,
I think it's 2.
And God bless America.
Yeah, right, dude. You know you're as godless as all get out. All right, anyway, that was fun. Senator Chris Van Hollen, have we already forgotten what happened in Iraq? Over 8,000 Americans killed. Yeah, like, dude, this is a while ago. What does this have to do with President Trump right now? The deaths of hundreds of thousands of Iraqi civilians, trillions of dollars spent, which I'm sure was in overwhelming support by the Democrats as well. Nobody has explained how a war with Iran helps America, because it won't. Look, I guess at least with that last line, I would certainly agree with that. I don't want to go to war against Iran. I would say probably virtually all conservatives don't want to go to war with Iran. Probably the far leftists, I'm sure they'd be happy about it because they just want to watch the entire world burn to the ground. So I think that we're pretty unified on that. Although I don't think that's exactly what Trump is going for. I don't think he's going for a full-on war against Iran. I highly doubt it. Securing all these peace deals just to break out this massive war against Iran, I somehow doubt it, but I don't have a crystal ball. Rep. Adam Smith, Donald Trump has had a vision of an authoritarian takeover of our government and is hell-bent on carrying it out. Oh yeah, the Trump dictatorship, the evil orange man dictator. We must stand up against that. All right, so how long is this? Okay, good. It's less than a minute.
He laid it out. He basically laid out a vision of an authoritarian takeover of our government. So I know a lot of people dive into the tea leaves and say, well, he's doing this to distract from that. He's doing that because he's desperate. His poll numbers down. He's doing that. No, understand, Donald Trump is hell-bent to consolidate as much power as possible in his hands and to delegitimize.
Yeah, which is why they've downsized the government by like, what was it, like 15 or 20%? Damn, I had the number just the other day. It's tens of thousands of jobs that have positions that have been wiped out in the federal government because they're unnecessary. So I think he's kind of doing the opposite.
In America. I mean, and this is a focus on that authoritarian power. Yes, he has some of the details that he wants to do, but the most important thing for him is just that he has the power. Remember, he said the only check on his power should be his morality. So let's not get caught up in thinking, oh, his poll numbers are down. Now he's going to react.
No, his number's actually up, dude.
This has been
over 50%
from the very start.
What was Biden's?
What
was it, like 18
from that
or 15?
standpoint? It's not more desperate. He's hell bent to do what he was doing in the first place, and we need to be hell bent to stop it.
Oh yeah, just like oh hell, what was his name? Peter Strzok. That's who it was. Peter Strzok. No, he won't. We'll stop it. He won't win the re-election. We'll stop it. Okay, so Democrats, 20 hours ago, we the people will move this nation forward in November. We have the power to make change, the power to stand up for what is right, and the power to demand more of our nation. No, I think what they meant to say is they have the right to demand more from our nation. Anyway, Rep. Ilhan Omar, I think we're getting close to the end of this string of Democrats, and then I'll follow it up with like some Republican responses from last night. My guest, Aliyah Rahman, stood up silently in the gallery during the president's speech for a short period of time. No, she didn't. No, they did not, dude. They were screaming bloody murder last night, part of which other guests were also standing. For that, she was forcibly removed despite warning officers about her injured shoulders and ultimately charged with unlawful conduct. Well, where's the video, dude? Show us the video. You got all this space. You can upload all the videos you want right here on the X platform. Why don't you just show us a video of her silently standing there? Because it didn't happen. Reports indicate she was aggressively handled until someone intervened to secure medical attention. She was taken to George Washington University Hospital for treatment and later booked at the United States Capitol Police Headquarters. The heavy-handed response to a peaceful guest sends a chilling message about the state of our democracy. I am calling for a full explanation of why this arrest occurred. I wonder if ICE put a detainer on her. Could you imagine? Her head would explode. All right, so Libs of TikTok. OMG, Democrat Rep. Janelle Bynum says it was racist and uncomfortable when Trump asked to stand for American citizens. Mind-blowing. And he put the whole thing on hold for what seemed like 5 straight minutes as the Republicans kept cheering because he told everyone in the room to stand if you believe that you should be serving American citizens over illegal immigrants. And of course, not a single Democrat stood up. They all sat there, and then Trump pointed at him, and he's like, look, not a single one. None of them. They don't stand for you. They don't stand for the American people. So anyway, let's
what did you think about that
listen to
moment when the
Janelle
president was
Bynum
asking Democrats to stand up for American citizens during that part of the speech when he was talking about immigration and immigration enforcement efforts?
Look, I actually appreciate his question, a straightforward question. What was your response when he asked everybody to stand up for American citizens? course, he had to throw that whole like immigration thing at the end, which he didn't have to do. She knows exactly what he's talking about, and everybody who watched the State of the Union knows too.
I think you can agree with the what, like standing up for American citizens, but I disagree with the how. And so it's always about how do we bring our country together, but not stand on the backs of others. There's thinly veiled racist language.
Oh my God, dude! Like Democrats, they're completely standing on the backs of illegal immigrants. They're trying to turn them into just like a serf class, essentially just a population that they can just infuse into their districts so they can just beef up their numbers to get more representatives in the Congress. That's what it's all about.
Language in
but that's not standing on the backs of
them. That was uncomfortable.
All right. Yeah, it was so uncomfortable because it made you look bad. You know it made you look bad because you couldn't stand up for it. Eric Daugherty, holy crap, Senator Chuck Schumer just admitted point blank that the Save America Act would remove people from the voter rolls. The SAVE Act will purge millions of Americans from the voting list. He doesn't mean real Americans. He means illegal aliens. Of course he does. Of course he does, because those are the only people who are going to be removed from it. That, and also duplicate names, of course, and also people who have been dead for many years that are still dead. As the old joke goes, for an old Democrat, make sure that you bury me in a blue state so I can keep voting. And I mean, it's seemingly evident that places like California, if you move from one address to another address and you keep your voter registration current, if you move to 5 addresses over the next 10 years, your ballot will show up to 5 different addresses over the years. They've already done an investigation. I don't know how conclusive it is. And it wasn't a federal government investigation. It was like some investigative journalist or something. Like they got some Freedom of Information Act on voter information. Maybe it was a government agency that did that. I recall looking at that a couple of weeks ago where they said that California only had 10 instances where during their voter roll updates that they actually removed individuals because they were invalid. And one of those things that would make you invalid would be changing your address because you can't be having your ballot sent to your previous address and your new address. However, it would seem that blue states are doing just that. So let's take a look at CNN.
The Senate is asking for people to have real ID or a passport or a birth certificate to register. When people are generally asked about voter ID, they're being asked to show an ID when they show up to vote. But what I'm asking you, Senator, because I know you're against the Save America Act, what kind of voter ID could you support? Is there a middle ground?
That's a good question.
Look,
none.
Look, Democrats support
He's not going to
voter
answer that.
ID,
Guaranteed.
Many states do, but that's not what the SAVE Act does. It will purge tens of millions of Americans from the voting lists, and they won't even know they're
American
purged
migrants
until they show up at the polling place and they say you're purged. And what is the mechanism for purging them? Doge. What Elon Musk put in terms of the policies of what to do.
What the hell does Doge have to do with anything? Doge is going to make everybody purged from their voting abilities. Dude, just get your damn birth certificate. We've all got a birth certificate. Just go and get one. You go to your state's Bureau of Vital Statistics or Department of Vital Statistics. I think it's named differently in different states, but you have to go to your Office of Vital Statistics. That's where your birth certificate is. You should have had one all along. Everybody should have one. And this would be a perfect opportunity to get it if you don't have it, because it would make it certainly easier if you have to apply for another job, God forbid, or a whole bunch of other things. I'm sure you probably have to produce a birth certificate if you want to get your passport. I mean, I don't know. I've never had my passport. However, if you do have a passport, you don't even have to worry about the whole birth certificate thing, even though you probably already have it anyway. From Benny Johnson, John Fetterman calls out his own party for humiliating themselves by yelling through Trump's State of the Union speech and holding cringe protest events. And it's a quote from Fetterman, so we'll just hear it from him directly.
I don't care if it's a Republican or Democrat as a president. Just don't do that. Don't do that. Respect the office, regardless who's in that. And now for me, it's like now when half the people in my party haven't showed up, and then some of them have chosen to just yell and say and scream during all of it.
Oh man, that was a clear jab at his party where he said half of them didn't show up, because it was pretty far from half. It was something like 88% of Democrats indeed did show up to the State of the Union. It was like 12 or 13% who decided not to.
I just don't think that's what we want. And I don't believe, as a Democrat, I think
stupid frogs.
Dancing frogs really moves the ball for us as a party either.
It's amazing, dude. These dancing frogs are amazing. They're hilarious. I think they got their start in Portland, if I'm not mistaken, with the whole ICE protests, riots out in front of the ICE building in Portland. These dorks started showing up in these green frog outfits. There's a couple of videos out there of one of these bozos that are bouncing around in a frog suit, and they get full on tackled by ICE agents. It was absolutely hilarious. I think Nick Sordor might have been out there filming that when that happened. It was amazing. Okay, so the real dark judge. We warned about extreme violence and assassinations, increased security around President Trump. So yeah, this is on a very serious note, dude. This person has lost their mind. This just goes to show how absolutely deranged and psychopathic that these far leftists have really gotten. From Libs of TikTok, deranged TikToker is calling for Trump to be dragged into the street and have his head cut off. No joke.
I don't care what Trump says about trans and queer people. I don't care what he said about women's hockey players. I don't care about the AI slop cartoon bullshit that he made about the Obamas.
He didn't make it. He just reposted it.
What I do care about is dragging him into the street, kicking and screaming, putting his head in a guillotine, and watching that thing pop off.
These people are psychos. Absolutely psychopathic. They are crazy. Now, does that fall under free speech? Probably. I think a lot of people would push back against it. Look, if you read the comments from this, like they're all calling for her to be immediately arrested, just full-on tackled by the Secret Service. Yeah, and then of course there are a lot of the trans shooters that have come up in recent years. You know, that should go without saying. Oh yeah, so they're doxing her profile. Of course that's going to happen. And AUF off. Rhetoric kills innocent people, must be stopped. Well, yeah, that is for sure. I mean, how is that not a form of hate speech? I mean, the leftists are all about hate speech. How is calling for a sitting president to be taken to a guillotine and then get graphic with your words? How is that not a form of hate speech? I mean, it sounds a little hateful to me. Okay, so I probably shouldn't get too far into these comments because I bet it's going to get like really, really crazy down here because after all, we are on YouTube. But anyway, that happened. So if you want to have a look at that and you want to dig into those comments, if you want to get entertained, that's one way to do it. You can go to Libs of TikTok. They posted this at 12:59 p.m. today. And leading report breaking: President Trump sickened by Democrats not standing for Irania Zarutska's sobbing mother. So this was during the State of the Union.
A knife through her neck and body. No one will ever forget there were people on that train. No one will ever forget the expression of terror on Irina's face as she looked up at her attacker in the last seconds of her life. She died instantly. She had escaped a brutal war only to be slain by a hardened criminal, set free to kill in America, came in through open borders. Mrs. Zarutska, tonight I promise you we will ensure justice for your magnificent daughter, Irina.
I mean, it's so heartbreaking. I cannot imagine what she's going through. Trying to escape the violence in Ukraine, only to be met with this. Insanity. And the Democrats are standing up. Which, by the way, it does say Fox News. I don't believe that this is the Fox News cameras that are hosting this event. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's C-SPAN. So I think everybody's getting their feed through C-SPAN. And I mean, look, I'm no C-SPAN expert. I can only assume that they probably lean a little further left than they probably do in the center or on the right. I think that there was kind of an agenda behind the fact that they just stayed focused on her, and then Trump is about to mention that nobody over there stood up for that, and C-SPAN just doesn't show them being seated during that moment, which, you know, I don't know, I guess it is what it is.
How do you not stand? How do you not stand? I'm asking this Congress to pass tough legislation to ensure that violent and dangerous repeat offenders are put behind bars. And importantly,
okay, so that was it. I mean, he goes on to talk about obviously putting dangerous criminals behind bars and cracking down on crime. He also mentioned our crime statistics being the best in over a century. All right, so I did ask this question of Grok. How many Democrats wore the Ukraine pin during the State of the Union? You'd think they'd be all about Irania Zarutska because she's a Ukrainian. She fled Ukrainian violence, the whole Ukraine-Russia war situation. She came over here to America to escape all of that, so you'd think that she would have had Democrats on her side, but evidently not. So according to Grok, according to reports from multiple outlets and video analysis of the 2026 State of the Union, a small number of Democrats did wear Ukrainian flag pins, such as Senator Richard Blumenthal and a few others on both sides of the aisle. Okay, well, apparently there's a couple of establishment Republicans. Rhinos that might be wearing Ukraine pins also. No exact count was reported, though. Many more Democrats will release the Epstein Files pins. Yes, of course, we already know that. So did Richard Blumenthal, did he stand up when the president honored Irina Zarutska's mother? And according to Grog, no. Senator Richard Blumenthal did not stand up during the tribute to Anna Zarutska in the 2026 State of the Union. Reports and footage show Democrats on the floor largely remained seated while Republicans gave a standing ovation. Trump directly called them out. How do you not stand? It's ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. Okay, what else do we got? Let's go on to the next one. Steve Scalise. Last night, Americans saw the stark contrast between Republicans and Democrats when the president asked a simple question: will you stand up for Americans and keeping them safe? Republicans stood, the Democrats sat. The choice was clear in 2024, and it's just as clear today. Yeah, dude, they want to defund the police. They want the rise of criminals. They want everybody to be a victim because they think that they can pull more people into the Democratic Party if they become a victim of something.
Election issue in 2024 was border security. It was the biggest issue everywhere you went. Border towns, places
popular
near
majority,
the border,
man.
Because people saw
First
how
time
crazy
Republican
it was
has
when
in 20
Democrats
years.
opened the border. Joe Biden for 4 years let it happen. And you saw it wasn't just millions of people, it was violent criminals. You saw crime spike. Every city was seeing violent crime because of this. And President Trump said, I'm going to stop it, and he did. And when he said, the easy question, Democrats call it a trap because they've lost their way as a party, but will you stand up for America against people coming in illegally who want to do us harm? And they sat down, and it showed the country who's on your side and who just wants to have wide open borders and violent crime in communities.
Yeah, it really was, man. There were a lot of instances where they should have stood. When it came to the Medals of Honor, he awarded 2 Medals of Honor last night, and I believe that Democrats stood for that, even though they actually didn't show the Democrats whether they were standing or sitting. I just assumed that they were standing. But most of the Democrats actually, believe it or not, they stood up for the insider trading. He mentioned that insider trading in Congress needs to be banned immediately, and surprisingly, there were quite a few Democrats that stood up for that. Okay, from the White House, Democrats didn't just stay seated for many successes of our nation. They refused to stand for the American people. We really do have a radical fringe in our country that's not representative of the whole, according to Vice President JD Vance.
What a sad commentary that is on the Democratic Party, that the idea that the American government should stand for American citizens, not illegal aliens. That shouldn't be controversial, but apparently it was to the Democrats. But I will say, Bill, something that I saw that probably most TV viewers didn't see was really the cowardice, because there were a few Democrats who sort of politely clapped. They didn't want to stand up. I guess maybe they were worried about being primaried by the far left fringe of their party, but they were all looking around. They weren't actually saying, you know what, I'm going to stand and support this because this is a common sense, obvious statement. They were all looking around for cues from their colleagues because they didn't have the courage to stand on their own. And that, more than anything, Bill, is the saddest commentary on the Democratic Party. You had congressional Democrats. They wouldn't stand for the idea that children shouldn't be socially transitioned without their parents' wishes. They wouldn't stand for the idea that American citizens should come first. They wouldn't stand for that innocent little girl who was assaulted by an illegal alien but managed to survive. Whatever your politics, whatever your views on immigration policy, can't we all stand and clap for an innocent young girl who shouldn't have been assaulted and was, being held by her dad? It was such a heartwarming moment. I think every American, Democrat,
because they're pro-illegal immigration,
thought that was a great moment for our country. The only people who didn't believe that, apparently, were the congressional Democrats in that chamber. I think it shows again how broken their party is. But that revelation, I think, using the State of the Union to drive home that we really do have a radical fringe in our country that's not representative of the whole. I don't think that we'll ever see a State of the Union that doesn't drive home that point.
Yeah, at first I was a bit irritated that C-SPAN kept showing Democrats over and over again during the State of the Union. But as time went on, I started appreciating it more and more because it was just showing that they were not standing for just the most basic stuff, like just basic common sense. So Democrats wouldn't even stand up for Delilah Coleman last night. This is from House Republicans. She was only 5 when an illegal alien in an 18-wheeler changed her life forever. And this is the little girl that JD Vance was just talking about. Biden let him into our country. Newsom gave him a commercial driver's license. Republicans are moving to ban CDLs for illegal aliens and ensure no American family has to endure this preventable nightmare again. Democrats stand with criminals. They're trying to block President Trump from deporting child offenders. Whose side are you on? Democrats will fight for them, but not for her. Delilah Coleman. Yeah, they're going to call it the Delilah Act. I'm going to get to that here in a minute. And that's who they stand for, man. They stand for the criminals. Rep. Mary Miller. President Trump inherited a nation wrecked by open borders, inflation, and policies that put illegal aliens ahead of our own people. He's rebuilding with one clear priority: protect American citizens first. When he said it on the floor, not a single Democrat stood in support.
I want to remind the listeners that President Trump did not create these problems. He inherited them. Exactly. It's way easier to tear something down than it is to build it. Joe
He did inherit these problems.
Whoever was running the country under him, the auto pen,
exactly.
That's
why Democrats don't blame Biden.
The country. They tore down our borders, law and order. They went against
cronies.
Parental rights,
the auto pen,
taxpayers in every way. President Trump is leading the great American comeback. Our country is strong. We're getting stronger. He cares deeply about our country. Love for the country is what motivates the president. I know it. Nobody would work this hard if they didn't love our country. And he's doing what good leaders should do. Number one, you protect the people. Yeah.
And, you know, he was putting a lot of stock into the stock market, and I'm not so sure if it's really going to hold steady or even get better across the year. And the one thing I'm worried about the most is AI, because people keep talking about this AI bubble. It might be in the process of bursting. Apparently, one of the early signs of the AI bubble bursting has to do with some gaming convention that's happening in March, because I guess Microsoft, they're throwing a whole bunch of AI infrastructure into the Xbox, and apparently a lot of people are pissed off about it. So apparently how that's going to go is going to sort of start to pull apart open the veil with regard to the possible empty room that is really AI in terms of demand for it. And a lot of people are getting sick of AI. They're calling it AI slop. Anytime people reference AI-generated artwork, they call it soulless, that there's no humanity behind it at all. It's just empty. And, you know, people, they'll use it for chatbots. They'll use it to Google something. But most people, I don't think, really want to pay for AI. I don't think they want to pay for specific AI tools. And big tech, they have invested probably well over $1 trillion at this point. And like Microsoft alone, they're like over 100, it's like $140 billion that they've invested into AI. And I think that's only over the last year or so. So it's an insane amount of money. Apparently, if the AI bubble bursts this year, I guess that's going to take a massive hit on the stock market. But look, I'm no financial guru or anything. I just watch other people, namely on YouTube, who they sound like they know what they're talking about, but I take everything with a grain of salt, and you should too. I mean, we should all take everything with a grain of salt, or at least use your common sense filter at the very least. All right, so from Homeland Security, this is our why. Last night, President Trump recognized Jacqueline Medina, the mother of 16-year-old cheerleader Lisbeth Medina, who was stabbed to death in 2023 by an illegal alien who should never have been in our country. We're committed to standing with the families like the Medinas, ensuring all public safety threats are removed from our communities, and protecting American citizens.
U.S. President Donald Trump touched on many topics in his nearly 2-hour-long speech, including immigration. And during that portion of his speech, he took a moment to recognize Jacqueline Medina, the mother of Lisbeth Medina, a former Grand Island resident who was murdered in December 2023 in Edna, Texas. Lisbeth was born and raised in Grand Island and had only lived in Texas for a year when she was murdered by Rafael Romero, who investigators say stalked her for weeks.
Lisbeth's killer was a previously arrested illegal alien who had broken in and brutally extinguished the brightest light in her family's life, violently and viciously. Her heartbroken mother is in the gallery to remind everyone in this chamber exactly why we are deporting illegal alien criminals to our country at record numbers, and we're getting them the hell out of here fast. We don't want them.
And of course, the Democrats refused to stand for that. You even had Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar screaming profanities and obscenities at him anytime he brought up illegal immigration. And we've got this from Disclosed.tv. I think we're going to start wrapping up the State of the Union content. So just in, Trump says low IQ Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, speak of the devils, should be sent back from where they came from as fast as possible, adding they can only damage the United States of America. So this is from President Trump's Truth Social from earlier. I'm assuming this came out today. When you watch low IQ Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib as they screamed uncontrollably last night at the very elegant State of the Union, Such an important and beautiful event. They had the bulging, bloodshot eyes of crazy people, lunatics, mentally deranged, and sick, who frankly look like they should be institutionalized. When people can behave like that and knowing that they are crooked and corrupt politicians, so bad for our country, we should send them back from where they came as fast as possible. They can only damage the United States of America. They can only do nothing to help it. They should actually get on a boat with Trump deranged Robert De Niro, another sick and demented person with, I believe, an extremely low IQ who has absolutely no idea what he is doing or saying, some of which is seriously criminal. When I watched him break down in tears last night, much like a child would do, I realized that he may be even sicker than crazy Rosie O'Donnell, who is right now in Ireland trying to figure out how to come back into our beautiful United States. The only difference between Robert De Niro and Rosie is that she is probably somewhat smarter than him, which isn't saying much. The good news is that America is now bigger, better, richer, and stronger than ever before, and it's driving them absolutely crazy. President Donald J. Trump. Oh my God, dude. Somebody ought to do a welfare check on Rosie O'Donnell because she's probably had a heart attack by now. Either that or her jaw like slammed through the floor and she's having trouble getting it picked back up out of the basement because she is going crazy right now. Maybe nobody told her that he actually posted this. She probably didn't even find out about it. All right, so Mark-Wayne Mullen from 10 hours ago, the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, really the Unaffordable Care Act, is unaffordable. Bernie Sanders, you're attacking me. Mullen, if I cared about your opinion, I would ask you, but I don't. You're part of the problem because you've been sitting here longer than I've been alive. Wow, dude. Let's take a look at this. It's a bit long, but it should be a banger.
During the ranking member's opening statement, he talked about misinformation coming from this administration, and I just want to point out that the Biden Surgeon General, Dr. Murthy, was actually, a court actually ruled against him in 2023, the Fifth Circuit Court, for trying to censor free speech on social media. That's misinformation, and so for us just to throw out an accusation like that with no evidence when the ranking member was completely silent when that took place, it's really some hypocrisy there. When we start talking about healthcare not being affordable, the ranking member and I actually agree on that. The problem is you supported the same tools that got us to where healthcare is unaffordable because ACA, Affordable Healthcare, which is completely 100%. Unaffordable, has risen 3 times faster than inflation itself.
Yes, it has.
Yet we still support it. Not we, you.
Yeah.
The Democrats.
No, I support a national health care program which will cut the cost of health care.
It's my time.
But it didn't, dude. Obamacare's been out since, when did they roll that out? Like 2011 or something like that? Like it was enacted in like 2009, years ago. There has not been a single year where Obamacare has reduced costs. And how many years have Democrats been in since Obamacare was passed? What is that, 8, 9, 10, 12 years? 12 years worth of Democrat rule. And Obamacare has not reduced it at all because government health care never does. It never does. And they can point to Canada, they can point to the UK all they want. And look, you could hear from Canadian and UK citizens all the time. They're not happy with their health care at all. If you got heart problems, good luck getting a heart surgery. You're going to be sitting on a waiting list for 2 freaking years.
Me. No, you're going to attack me. I'm going to respond. I'm pointing out facts. You can
we
say
getting
what
emotional,
you want.
Bernie.
I'm just pointing out facts.
No,
the
you're
fact
putting out lies.
is that it is risen 3 times faster.
Quit drinking soy lattes.
Yet we still want to sit here and defend it. The ranking member wants us to talk about all the death that is supposedly going to be happening because of President Trump and Secretary Kennedy, because how dare they look at a healthcare system that is broken and unaffordable and try to make change.
Yeah, you know, how much money has Bernie Sanders taken from the likes of Big Pharma and the big health insurance industry? I'm sure he's probably taken untold millions, maybe not directly into his pocket, but I'm sure his campaign has benefited quite well off of them.
But yet the definition of insanity is what? Doing the same thing, expecting different results,
same
so
thing.
we should just
that
sit
is
here
insane.
and accept it? And how dare we look into vaccines to just simply look to see if maybe vaccines may be a partial cause to autism when it's rising at a rate faster than any country in the nation?
How many do they take? 72 freaking injections?
How dare us look at science? Oh my goodness. Science is supposed to be perfect. I thought science was always supposed to be studied.
Science.
I'm for looking into it.
Don't question it.
As a father of 6 kids, I want to look into it.
No
I want to know
shit.
what's causing it, and I will turn over every stone. And so, Dr. Means, thank you for saying I want to turn over every stone. Good on you. I'm not a doctor. I'm not sitting here trying to say we shouldn't do something. I'm saying let's go after it. Let's look at it. Let's question what we're doing. Let's look at the healthcare system. We can agree on that one. I just don't want to socialize it. But we can agree that it is absolutely not affordable. 100% not affordable. Yet it was supposed to be affordable. That's what we was sold by Obamacare.
You get to keep your doctor.
So how about we work together and say, hey, so scrap ACA, admit it doesn't work, admit you guys made a mistake, and let's work at something with President Trump to make affordable health care healthy and affordable for everybody. But there's zero chance you guys could do that. Zero chance. Yet everybody we bring up here, you guys chastise for trying to make changes. God forbid we change and go after and try to fix our broken system.
Hell yeah.
Anyways, I ranted too long. Let's talk about some...
Wasted too much time, the likes of Bernie.
I'm sorry, I didn't ask your opinion on that. And if I cared about your opinion, I would ask you, but I don't care about your opinion.
Yeah, we don't give a shit about you.
You're part of the problem.
Yeah, you're the one who fucked it all up.
You've been sitting here longer than I've even been alive. This is your problem. You should have fixed this a long time ago. You've been real on it so long. What have you been doing?
I've decided not to run for Surgeon General. You're the nominee. I've decided not to accept that nominee.
That is definitely something we would never accept. Ma'am, what's your passion about health care?
These people are
What
evil.
brought you into this?
Thank you, Senator Mullen. For all of us, I'm just going to take a deep breath. My vision for Surgeon General and for the future of America is to get more healthy, whole food on Americans' plates and to work to systematically encourage our healthcare system to focus on the root causes of why we are sick and not just reactive sick care. This is my passion. This is why I was put on this earth.
We are what you eat.
We have an incredible healthcare system. It's amazing.
Well,
it's
the
produced
technology
miracles.
is incredible.
If we have an acute issue, absolutely you want to be in America to get that fixed.
Oh,
but
yeah.
90% of
money.
healthcare costs are now going to chronic diseases. And frankly, having practiced, I've seen thousands of patients, worked in this system for almost a decade in clinical medicine, it's not the focus of what we as doctors are incentivized to spend our time on. It's not what's reimbursed, and this is a problem. Medical education doesn't focus on these modifiable root causes of diseases. The science is showing us through amazing emerging work in systems biology and network biology that the physiologic causes of the vast majority of diseases that are taking American lives and torturing and shortening our lives, even in our children, are connected by shared physiology and shared root causes. We need to upgrade the paradigm of the American healthcare system to educate and treat in that way. It is by far the most efficient way to treat, of course, because if we're addressing shared root causes, we're going to be able to stop the whack-a-mole medicine that's not working for us and that is so costly. And so my passion is to help work with the AMA, work with medical schools, work with Democrats, Republicans, all sorts of agencies across the government to ensure that we really move the needle on shifting the American healthcare system towards root causes. I know we can do it. There's political will. It's what Americans want. Even the medical schools are on board, but we need a vision to get there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, she's absolutely right. I mean, we're the fattest country on the planet. Our country is so backwards that our poor is more heavy set than our rich. And like Secretary Kennedy had said, that almost 80% of our children have been diagnosed with a chronic ailment of one form or another, to the point where 8 out of 10 children in America cannot join the military. They would be unqualified to join the military. That's how insane our nation's healthcare state is right now. It's insane. Libs of TikTok, Zoran Mamdani and AOC just put out a video promoting free daycare for illegal aliens, completely in Spanish. Democrats are taking Americans' money and spending it on foreign invaders. It's only 30 seconds. I guess we'll just give it a watch, even if it's in stupid Spanish.
Mi español no es el mejor.
Okay, never mind. There's English.
Si su hijo o hija está cumpliendo 3
For the record, I
años
misspoke.
en el
Spanish ain't stupid.
2026,
Spanish is actually pretty cool.
Usted puede registrarlos gratis en el programa Kinder 3 o Prekinder de la ciudad de Nueva York. Pero debe registrarse el 27 de febrero, que es la fecha límite. Cualquier padre de la familia de la ciudad de Nueva York, sin importar su ocupación, ingreso o estatus migratorio,
Immigration status.
es elegible
She said
para
it.
registrar a sus hijos.
That's exactly what they want to do. They just want to give your tax dollars to illegal immigrants. Of course, that's what they want to do. But he's desperately trying to search for money to try to bring the budget up to par. He's still like $6 billion short. And maybe it has something to do with the fact that they're spending $51,000 per student, per K through 12 student in New York City. That's how much money they're spending. It's crazy. Like I would say most universities don't even cost that much for an entire year, probably even including your room and board. Yeah, absurd. Elon Musk, the New York Times, is utterly disgusting. From Senator Mike Lee, no, it's a crime. This is delusional. And he takes this picture from the New York Times. This is back on October 5th of 2014. I mean, look, this should not be buried. This absolutely should have been resurrected and shown to the American people. Pedophilia, a disorder, not a crime. By Margot Kaplan, not familiar with them, op-ed contributor. So yeah, they're seeming to suggest that to be a pedo, you just have a poor and innocent disorder. You shouldn't be labeled a criminal. In fact, that word should be completely banned and it should be replaced with minor attracted persons, because that's what the left has been pushing for since at least 2014, if not longer than that. So it got 800,000 likes, 61 million views just over the last couple of days, February 23rd. So yeah, this is like maybe even less than 48 hours old when it was originally posted. Yeah, 10:22 p.m. Yeah, so it's been out for like 46 hours and it's gotten a ton of attention. Probably more attention than it did when it first came out, actually. U.S. Coast Guard stopping narco-terrorism from the Caribbean to the Eastern Pacific after surpassing 200,000 pounds of cocaine seized through Operation Pacific Viper. The U.S. Coast Guard has surged counter-drug operations into the next year. I think they just misspelled year. Last week, the Coast Guard cutter Seneca offloaded 17,750 plus pounds of cocaine in the Eastern Pacific, and crews at Station Fort Lauderdale seized 745 pounds from two vessels off Port Everglades. 80% of U.S.-bound drug interdictions occur at sea vice land. That's our finest maritime fighting force, defending U.S. borders and maritime approaches and keeping deadly drugs out of our communities. And you can read more at uscoastguard.mil if you want to get some more of the data and the statistics and their press release. There's a lot of drugs, man. They're seizing a lot of drugs. And to give for the Democrats to slap them all across the face for all this hard work, they're not allowing them to get their paychecks right now because Democrats have shut down the Department of Homeland Security, which the Coast Guard falls under. So we've got this video clip from them. Yeah, rock and roll, man. Look at all them square groupers out there. Collect them up. Operation Pacific Viper, they're going on fishing expeditions, and they're not even getting a paycheck thanks to the Democrats. And from Homeland Security, passed the Delilah Law. Delilah Coleman was only 5 when she suffered life-changing injuries caused by an illegal alien driving an 18-wheeler. What happened to Delilah is a tragedy that could have been prevented if California did not grant commercial driver's licenses to illegal aliens. Many illegal aliens do not speak English and cannot read basic road signs, and they have no business being on our nation's roads. The Trump administration will keep fighting every single day to remove dangerous aliens who have no right to be in the U.S. From Senator Jim Banks, I just introduced the Delilah Law that President Trump called for at last night's State of the Union to stop illegal immigrants from getting trucking licenses. Too many Americans have been hurt or killed. We must act now.
Last night, President Trump delivered an incredible State of the Union address. One of the president's guests was a little girl named Delilah Coleman. When Delilah was just 5 years old, she suffered life-changing injuries caused by an illegal immigrant driving a semi-truck in California. And it was the Democrat state of California that gave the illegal immigrant his commercial driver's license. She is one of way too many people who have been hurt or killed by illegal immigrant truckers on our roads. 8 Hoosiers have been seriously injured, again, that's just what I know of, on Indiana roads by illegal immigrant drivers in the past 6 months. And that's just the 8 that we know of. Thank God Delilah, who we saw last night up in the gallery, is recovering well. In honor of Delilah, President Trump called on Congress to pass the Delilah Law, which would bar any state in the country from granting an illegal immigrant a commercial driver's license.
It's insane we're even having this conversation.
Illegal immigrants cannot speak English.
If they can get a CDL, they can get just about anything.
Signs.
Are they practicing medicine too?
They have no business being on our roads, especially not behind the wheel of a semi-truck. Well, today, Mr. President, I'm answering President Trump's call, and today I'm introducing the Delilah Law in the United States Senate. The Delilah Law not only bars states from giving CDLs to illegal immigrants, but it also revokes all trucking licenses that are currently issued to illegals and mandates that the CDL knowledge and skills test are only given in English.
English.
This
Only
is
English.
common sense. This will be a common sense law. And I hope that we will get a chance to vote on it in the Senate very soon.
Yeah, you know, if the Democrats get back in, if they want to start racking up more regulations, they'll probably force the auto industry to start making holographic windshields it'll display different languages on your windshield so you can read the road signs in other languages. So here, let's have a look at this website that he's got up there on that board. Let's see what this leads to from banks.senate.gov. And sometimes the websites are a little slow. The government websites, as expected. Jim Banks, for U.S. Senator for Indiana. This form is for reporting trucking carriers you believe may be breaking federal law. Use it to share concerns about carriers employing or contracting with drivers who are not legally in the United States, who are not authorized to drive a truck, or who cannot meet required English language safety standards. Reports submitted to the Truck Safety Tip Line will be reviewed and shared with the U.S. Department of Transportation and its Office of Inspector General to help protect roadway safety and ensure a fair, lawful trucking industry. And it's probably not going to offer this tip, but I would say if you don't have one, get a dash camera. They are dirt cheap now. Whether if you shop Amazon or not, or if you shop elsewhere, I'm sure they're all over the internet. You can get a dash cam for like $20 and it records at a minimum at 1080p quality, which is plenty good enough to have the ability to read license plates. You can even buy one for like $30 and they have night vision. They even have infrared night vision now. And no joke, they're like $30. Now, they probably won't last you for years on end. You probably have to get it replaced after maybe a year or two worth of it baking in the sun in the summer and freezing during the winter. I mean, I bought mine. I think I spent like $70 on mine, and I've had it for like 4 or 5 years now. And I live in the state of Florida. That dash cam's been getting cooked every day, and I don't park my car in the garage. It's just out in the open. So, and it still works perfectly fine. But anyway, the contact information is here if you got any info. Like the license number and all that good stuff. I mean, I wouldn't expect a whole lot of everyday citizens to gather enough information to give that extensive of a report. However, if you have a dash cam and if you observe something like that, you got it all on camera at least, especially if you're just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, or maybe in a different circumstance, if you happen to be in the right place at the right time and you catch it all on camera, you know, that would be very beneficial. And plus, maybe your dash cam footage will go viral. But it's not just for the sake of illegal immigration. It's good to just have one, just to have one. Because you never know if somebody hits you and then they try to blame you on it. You got it on camera, at the very least. All right, so Rep. August Pfluger, I proudly voted to pass Rep. Craig Goldman's Homeowner Energy Freedom Act on the House floor today. This legislation repeals burdensome regulations to help improve housing affordability for all Americans. House GOP is restoring the American dream of home ownership. And from Rep. Craig Goldman, the Homeowner Energy Freedom Act has passed the House. I'm proud to lead this bill to help lower home prices and restore the American dream of home ownership. Thank you all to all my colleagues who supported this important bill. So we've got like conflicting points of view because President Trump wants to keep all the housing at the same price, if not more expensive, because he touts that all homeowners now have a much bigger nest egg than they had a few years ago. Completely didn't touch on anything having to do with younger Americans, which I've already spoken on that. But anyway, he's passing this, and let's have a look at this and see exactly what this entails, because this is the first time that I'm hearing about it. And according to Grok, explain the Homeowner Energy Freedom Act. So the Homeowner Energy Freedom Act, H.R. 4758 in the 119th Congress, sponsored by Rep. Craig Goldman, is a Republican-led bill that repeals certain energy efficiency and electrification programs established under the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 under Biden. As of February 25th of 2026, the House of Representatives has passed it by a vote of 210 to 199. Very slim partisan margins, of course. Key provisions, and this is just the short summary, it repeals 3 specific sections of the IRA, and rescinds any remaining unobligated funds for them. The High Efficiency Electric Home Rebate Program, which provided rebates, especially for low and moderate income households, to support electrification upgrades like switching to high efficiency electric appliances and equipment. State-based home energy efficiency contractor training grants. It funds to train workers for energy efficiency installations. Assistance to states and local governments to adopt and implement more stringent building energy codes, e.g. incentivizing updates like the 2021 International Energy Conservation Code. And the main arguments for and against, the supporters, primarily Republicans, home builder groups like NAHB and taxpayer organizations argue it eliminates costly federal mandates and subsidies that drive up home construction ownership costs, such as claims of adding up to $31,000 to new home prices, also restricting consumer choice by pushing away from gas appliances toward electric ones, and represent government overreach in energy decisions. And the opponents say, which include environmental groups like the Sierra Club, they say it removes programs that help lower household energy bills through efficiency upgrades and cut utility costs for families, support workforce training, and promote cleaner energy options, ultimately harming affordability and reliability in the long run. Yeah, and I'm sure that these high efficiency appliances are probably not dirt cheap. They're probably top of the line, extremely expensive. And to be mandated by law that you have to have those installed in your house is just ridiculous. Who are they to say what we have in our own home? I mean, talk about overreach. A companion bill exists in the Senate, S333, introduced by Senator Tim Sheehy, Republican of Montana, but its status is less advanced as of now. The bill's fate in the full legislative process, Senate passage and presidential signature remains pending. So there you go. That's the bill in question that they're talking about. And I think that's a great idea. I think Americans should choose for themselves what kind of appliances that they want to have in their homes. And let's move on to Secretary Marco Rubio. In my meeting with Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar, we talked about making our partnership even stronger to make our people more prosperous and safe. Trinidad and Tobago's ongoing support for U.S. military operations in the South Caribbean Sea is one example of many and is helping us protect both our citizens from the scourge of drug trafficking. So it looks like he met with her today. And I have one more from Secretary Marco Rubio. And he met with St. Kitts and Nevis Prime Minister Terrence Drew and thanked him for his leadership and hospitality surrounding today's CARICOM Caribbean Community. It promotes and supports a unified Caribbean community that is inclusive, resilient, competitive, sharing in economic, social, and cultural prosperity. And the U.S. values our partnership with St. Kitts and Nevis, and we will continue cooperation to combat transnational crime and end illegal immigration in our hemisphere. So yeah, Marco Rubio, he is right back at it. From the looks of him last night, because President Trump, he acknowledged Marco Rubio during the State of the Union. He stayed seated for a minute with his game face. He's got like the most serious face of anybody that's in the Trump administration, I would say. But he stood up for like what seemed like a half a second, and he gave like a swift wave, and he sat right back down. He slammed his ass back down on the chair, and then he just locked himself back into his game face, and then he stood up one more time because they kept clapping for him. He's like, all right, fine, I'll stand and I'll wave. I mean, by the looks of it, it looked like he just couldn't get out of there fast enough because he's got about a million irons in the fire right now. I'm sure he's extremely busy. So anyway, he's doing an incredible job. I do not envy his work. His workload has got to be just gargantuan. All right, Secretary Kennedy, for the last 30 years, Americans have been paying the highest drug prices in the world. Every president has promised to correct it. President Trump did it in just 1 year.
For the last 30 years, Americans have paid the highest drug prices in the world. We have 4.2% of the world's population, but 75% of pharmaceutical revenues come from our country.
Oh my God, dude, what did you say, 4.7%? But like 75% of the revenue for pharmaceuticals, it's because we're so unhealthy. We're so chronically ill. Whether if it's mentally, physically, overweight, it is unbelievable, man.
And we developed the drugs here. We do the innovation.
Yeah, we do the innovation.
Europe has been free.
We should be paying the least.
You could get a drug a year ago. You could get Ozempic, for example, and the list price in this country was $1,350.
Crazy.
In London, in any pharmacy in London, you could buy that same drug for $88, and it's made in the same factory
so
in New
fucked up,
Jersey.
man.
Americans were paying 15 times what they were paying in London. And this is true for virtually every pharmaceutical. We pay 2, 3, or 4 times.
Yeah, except probably narcotics. Those are probably cheap. Getting Americans addicted.
Decades, ever since I was a kid. And every president has promised to correct it. And President Trump did that in 1 year. We went into negotiations with the pharmaceutical companies. 16 of the 17 companies have now agreed to give Americans the lowest cost pharmaceuticals in the world. So if they charge a European nation a lower price, we then get that price or lower. And Americans can get these advantages today by going to Trump RX. So we're going to see this across the board. And this is about 13% of healthcare costs. So it is going to dramatically lower healthcare costs in this country. And one of the biggest burdens for Americans is paying for pharmaceutical drugs. A lot of them,
bankrupt the family.
They take only half of them, or they stop taking them because they can't afford it. And that's not good for our health. And President Trump has changed that. And I don't think, I was on the front lines of those negotiations, and I saw how complex and difficult they were. He didn't want us to bankrupt the companies, and he wanted them also to onshore their production, bring it back to our country. So he used tariffs to get the Europeans to raise their drug prices. So the innovation money is still there, and there's still enough. These companies, actually, their stock price went up afterwards, even though they cut their costs dramatically to the American people.
Wow, would you listen to that, man? So their stock prices still went up, despite the fact that they reduced the pharmaceutical prices. So they really didn't even have to have them up that high. It's just plain greed, just plain old-fashioned greed. From Rapid Response 47, the EPA leaves Zeldin on big tech building their own power plants. Quote, if we can structure these deals across the board where it's delivering that benefit to the rate payer and the local community, that's the way we should be pursuing these build-outs. Sounds great.
I have
Small
had the
modular nuclear
to
reactors,
all
man.
50 states as EPA
I'm rooting for
I've
them.
been to a lot of groundbreakings of multi-billion-dollar projects where new data centers are being built. One in particular comes to mind when I was in West Memphis, Arkansas, a $4 billion Google data center working with the state of Arkansas and Entergy, where they structured the agreement where it's an over $1 billion net benefit to the Entergy ratepayer. We need more baseload power in this country. If we could structure these deals across the board where it's delivering that benefit to the ratepayer and the local community, that's the way that we should be pursuing these build-outs.
Yeah, of course, the Democrats, they don't want that because they just want to go green with their wind turbines and their solar panels. There's a place in the world for them. I'm not completely knocking it. Look, wind turbines, I'm pretty much fully against those. Those are ridiculous. But solar panels, yeah, there's a good use for solar panels. And as they keep building out more AI infrastructure, which is very heavily reliant on electricity, and also Democrats, they want everybody driving electric vehicles. That certainly is going to demand a hell of a lot of power. I mean, it just looks like we're just tracking up exponentially to a requirement of more electricity. It's probably going to start like doubling by the year, it would seem. So I don't know. It would certainly be nice, though, if they all build out their own power generation facilities. That way they won't have to tap into the civilian market or whatever you want to call it, the main power grid. All right, so from Vice President JD Vance on the war on fraud. First of all, the Justice Department is going to be investigating and where possible, throwing fraudsters in prison. It means that Secretary Scott Bessent with Treasury will look at income tax records. There's a whole host of tools that we have that have never been used. Yeah, dude, it's all on paper, man. It should be just pretty straightforward, especially with the advent of the internet and how they can just categorize so much. I'm sure look, the federal government's got AI now, man. Make the AI do it. Just put in a prompt for AI, just look for the fraud. You got to type in the parameters and everything and let it run its thing. I'm sure it can reach all throughout the federal government and grab all the tax records and data and statistics and everything that's involved with all the other departments. I don't know if it's going to have that ability. I would assume that it probably would. All right, so let's hear from JD
I don't
Vance.
know what the top line number, Bill, is, and I think that's unfortunate that nobody has ever tried to take a systematic look at how much fraud there is in the federal government. How many illegal aliens
it's probably
are on
horrifying.
Medicaid? We know that it's billions and billions of dollars that should go to American citizens. It's going to illegal aliens. How many fraudulent daycare centers have been set up where that money should go to American citizens to help their kids get into childcare?
Probably why daycare is so
Instead, it's
expensive
being
right now.
stolen from them by illegal aliens
Writing
in our
blank checks.
country. How much has
Stealing it all.
have government officials actually been complicit in this fraud, because some of them have gotten wealthy, or at the least they've gotten campaign donations from the people who have gotten rich
The
from that
Leering
fraud.
Center.
The story of the American economy in so many ways during the Biden administration, Bill, is that the
Which, by the way, quick comment on the Leering Center. If you're not familiar with that, it was in Minnesota, some daycare center that Nick Shirley paid a visit to and pointed out the fact that this quality learning center, they couldn't even spell freaking learning right in the learning center, which is hilarious. I mean, that just goes without saying. But they went there to see if there's any children there. There's no kids there. I think they were out there for a while just seeing if any parents would show up. It was an empty building. There was like 3 guys that were in that building, and that was it. And then they paid the place a visit a couple days later, and all of a sudden, just out of thin air, there were all these cars that were pulling up, and people were bringing their kids inside, which I'm sure they were all probably paid
The
actors.
American citizen was ripped off for people who shouldn't be here and by politicians who should have known better. And the Trump administration, the president has asked me to take a full, whole government approach to trying to understand that. And what does that mean, Bill? That means, first of all, the Department of Justice is going to be investigating and, where possible, throwing fraudsters in prison. But it's also going to mean that Scott Bessent and some of our friends at the Treasury Department, we're going to be looking at income tax records. We're going to be trying to understand how it is that the American people have been defrauded, how it is that people have used resources and programs that should go to American citizens instead have been going to fraudulent uses. There's a whole host of tools that we have that have never been used. And the president, I talked about this a couple of months ago and said, what if we just did everything that we could to stop the fraud that's being committed against the American taxpayer? The president said, great idea, let's do it, and we're going to work on that very aggressively over the next year.
Yeah, and the problem with Minnesota, there's like 800 daycare centers. Many are completely fraudulent. Many don't even physically exist. The building, there's no building. The business exists on paper, but the address goes to an apartment. There's 150 kids that are at this daycare facility, but there's no building. And all of the ones that do exist, they're going to have a hell of a time trying to fill them up with kids, because there's probably more fraudulent daycare centers than there are children in freaking Minnesota. All right, so Vice President JD Vance. So this is going to be the whole thing. I've got a couple of the clips, but I think I'm going to start with the whole video because, I've got like 20 minutes left. I think I'm just going to start with at least the beginning of this. This is Vice President Vance and Administrator Oz announcing actions to address fraud, waste, and abuse. So he gave a full statement on that, a full speech in front of the media today. Looks like it's 44 minutes in total. So let's skip ahead. See where it gets started. All right, here we go.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. So let me say a couple things about what we're announcing today, and then I'm going to kick over to Dr. Oz, and then we are going to take a few questions. So as a lot of you know, there are way too many Americans who are being defrauded by very bad actors in our society, people who take the goodwill and the trust of the American taxpayer, and they decide to use it against us. They
and investigate all 50 states. Not just the blue ones, investigate all of them.
These programs that are set up to make it easier for people to take care of their families, to make it easier for autistic kids to get the after-school services they need, to make it easier for people to get the health care that they need. And we are going to start very aggressively in the administration cracking down on the people and the organizations that are defrauding Americans. So we're announcing today that we have decided to temporarily halt certain amounts of Medicaid funding that are going to the state of Minnesota in order to ensure that the state of Minnesota takes its obligations seriously to be good stewards of the American people's tax money. Now, what is this going to mean? What this means is that, first of all,
heads are going to
the
explode.
Providers on the ground in Minnesota have actually already been paid. The state has paid those providers the money.
Right.
What we're doing is we are stopping the federal payments that will go to the state government until the state government takes its obligations seriously.
Yeah, and by that, they need to show their paperwork. They need to show their documentation, because the Small Business Administration, among others, have been demanding paperwork from the governor. And so far, I don't think that they've produced a single sheet of paper.
To stop the fraud that's being perpetrated against the American taxpayer. There are a few different ways that we're doing that. There are a few different affirmative actions that we're taking today. Dr. Oz is going to talk about those, but let me talk a little bit about the spirit of this and why we're doing it. So number one of the examples of fraud that we've seen in Minnesota that we verified that is just awful is that a program that existed to ensure that autistic children had access to some after-school services has made a number of people rich, not by providing services to needy children, but by allowing fraudsters to take money that ought by right go to American citizens and to American families, and to set up sham businesses, set up sham clients, set up people who are not even autistic but claim to be autistic in order that they benefit from the money that's out there. Now, what does that
including
mean?
transportation
Number
companies
one,
too.
It means
That's
that a
also
lot
a
of
major
people
problem.
are getting rich off the generosity of American taxpayers, but more fundamentally and more importantly than that, it means that there are kids in Minnesota who deserve these services, who need these services, and they're not going to those kids. They're going to fraudsters in Minneapolis.
Well, and also another problem, though, is that there were parents who were taking their children to these quote unquote like autism diagnosis centers, and those kids don't have autism. They were getting a fake diagnosis. That way it shows that the state of Minnesota has X amount of children with autism. Therefore, they need this amount of funding, and they get that amount of funding. But the vast majority of those children who claim to have autism, they don't have autism. So they absolutely need to be investigating that as well. They have to reinvestigate every kid that they have diagnosed with autism, because supposedly, at least according to Nick Shirley and that I can't remember that old guy that he's got with him, but he's done a ton of research into that they've determined that many of these kids, like there's entire centers, there's these like quote unquote medical centers that are completely fraudulent. Every kid that goes in there, they just blanket diagnose them with autism so they can funnel them into that system, that fraudulent system that they've created around autism.
And that's the sort of thing that we're cutting off with this action today. Let me make one final point about the spirit of this. You know, one of the things I love about our country is that we're a generous country. We're a generous people. We take care of our fellow citizens who can't afford medical care because they're down on their luck. We take care of people who can't afford to put food on the table even though they work hard and play by the rules. We recognize that we're all in this together, and part of the reason why we have Medicaid, or part of the reason why we have food stamps, part of the reason why we have these programs is we want to make sure that kids who grew up in families not all that different from the family that I grew up in, that they have access to the basic necessities: food, medical care, after-school services when their family needs them but they're unable to pay. What's happening in Minneapolis, in California, in a number of states all across our country is that the generosity and the good hearts of our fellow Americans are being taken advantage of. We're taking that social contract that says that our American citizens, we take care of one another, and we're allowing a few bad actors to get rich off that generosity of spirit instead of providing the services to the kids who need it. This is disgraceful. It has happened for too long. Far too many people have gotten rich by taking what is the best of the American spirit and getting rich off of it instead of providing services to kids who need it. That is stopping today. We're taking a whole of government approach in the Trump administration to take this fraud seriously. What Mehmet Oz and his team at CMS have done is really remarkable, and it's just the first step of our efforts. So without further ado, let me turn it over to Mehmet to say a few words about what
he's doing a hell of a lot more than VP Kamala Harris ever did. All she said was, "Don't come. Just don't come." It literally did nothing else.
I appreciate the leadership on this. There's no question that his commitment, the Vice President's commitment to rooting out this fraud, is going to make a massive difference in preserving and protecting our nation's public health programs. It's going to protect patients. I want to thank President Trump for pushing all.
And you know what? I hope they produce an avalanche of results with this fraud, including indictments, by the thousands. I hope that they show just an ocean's worth of information during October Surprise.
To make sure we protect our most vulnerable Americans, the ones that JD mentioned, the ones he grew up with, the ones all of us know in our lives. It also protects taxpayers from attacks on our healthcare system. Secretary
Because
Kennedy
Democrats aren't taking it
spearheaded these
seriously.
efforts,
I wish they
and
would.
thanks to his leadership, I'm proud to announce the largest
They're culpable,
fraud
it would seem.
initiative, anti-fraud effort of its kind in CMS history. Now, why is this action necessary? Last night in the State of the Union address, the president spoke about the affordability issues that we have improved dramatically in this administration. But let's put some numbers on health care. The average family puts about $27,000 into health care a year. They only pay $7,000 themselves, which is a lot, but there's an extra $20,000 invested for them. This is not a reasonable amount of money to spend. We have got to bend that curve downwards. It's unpredictable as well when you have to make these expenses, and the fraud that we're experiencing in America is making this already dangerous problem much worse. So we're going to fix these issues. The president last night spoke about the need for price transparency. That's going to help by making people more aware of what they're paying. It's also going to help us at CMS figure out what you should be paying and identifying fraud. To that note, the president announced last night that he's appointing our vice president to lead the war on healthcare fraud, a wise choice. Your passion for this will make a huge difference. This is not about the money by itself. This is about people's lives and our culture, our shared values that have allowed these beautiful programs, Medicare and Medicaid, to survive brilliantly for 60 years. We believe, listen carefully, that we are spending
a lot of Americans are getting to the point where they're going to say, cut it all off.
Healthcare in this country.
Enough with this.
For fraudulent, abusive, or wasteful purposes. $300 billion. Let's put that in perspective.
Wow.
If we could reduce fraud by 5%, which is that $300 billion, we would take the trust fund that's going to take care of all of us as we get older, and we would allow it not to expire in 5 to 6 years. We would double its life expectancy. That's massively important if you're going to trust the social safety net to be there for you. You deserve that social safety net. It's there. It's created. We're not going to let fraudsters steal it from you. Distiller CMS team on
it seems like a lot of them are freaking immigrants.
Over there, Dan Brillman,
stealing our money.
Snap, Steph Carlton have worked tirelessly to put this together. They've been rooting out criminals all year long. I know as well what it's like. I visited all these areas, personally witnessed what it's like to see something you know is wrong and wonder why no one tried to fix it. It's infuriating. The vice president described very accurately exactly what you see on the ground. These self-serving scoundrels, that's what they are, who rob our federal and state health programs, have decided it is worth the risk. I'm going to make a proposition to you.
Yeah, because they have nothing to lose.
On Medicare or Medicaid in America, and you steal, let's say, a couple $1 million, your jail sentence, first-time offender, maybe a year. For a lot of folks, that's a good deal. We have to take these crimes seriously and treat them as seriously.
Meanwhile,
as
they're
if they were
funneling the
bank
money into
robberies, because they're more
Dubai,
dangerous than bank robberies.
Cayman
People
Islands,
get hurt during them.
Switzerland.
Let me share some of these horrible stories.
Where it's untouched.
The vice president started highlighting
Untouchable.
autism. Let's get into the details of what's really going on in Minnesota. These are real cases from our group at CMS. These are adjudicated numbers. There's a fraud scheme in Minnesota where criminals, soon-to-be criminals, pay moms $1,000 roughly in order to enroll their children as being autistic.
There you go.
Dishonestly claiming their children are autistic. They then bill Medicaid, this has already happened, millions of dollars for services that were never rendered, never delivered by a qualified staff member.
Never were.
These schemes disproportionately involve immigrant communities. They're insulated. They're able to organize efforts, and sometimes they don't understand what's going on. And it ultimately diverts resources away from kids who truly have autism. Because if every kid in the neighborhood has autism, then nobody has autism in terms of how you can manage them.
I mean,
there was one behavioral, and by the way, these kids, they carry that diagnosis of autism the rest of their lives. Their mom made a bad decision, the kid pays the price for the rest of their life.
Wow.
There's one behavioral health organization, Mr. Vice President, in Minnesota. They received $11.5 million in Medicaid payments, but the top biller submitted 450 days where they claimed they were working more than 24 hours a day. I mean, even in the White House, that's tough. It's hard to work more than 24 hours a day. How it didn't get picked up is shocking to us at CMS. There are other red flags in Minnesota, including hundreds of beneficiaries receiving treatment linked to one location.
I think they're all skimming off the top.
Impossible physically to be true.
All these Democrats in Minnesota.
8 beneficiaries in one of these substance use disorder centers, 8 who were already dead. But the center was still billing us.
Wow.
Not only
already
did they
dead.
let the person pass, they kept billing for it. That's the level of average we're talking about. So CMS is done paying and chasing. We don't think jail sentences are the right way out. These criminals flee the country. Many are foreign nationals. Instead, we're launching the largest action against fraud that we've ever taken. The money's not going to ever leave the building again. We're going to start draining the swamp of the crooks that have inhabited it and are defrauding us. There are 3 bold actions. The first, And for many of you, maybe the most important is we're going to, for the first time, take a massive action to defer funds to a state. Let's start with this Medicaid program in Minnesota, which serves pregnant women. Medicaid takes care of our children. 53% of kids are born into poverty. They're supported through Medicaid. Disadvantaged seniors, individual with disabilities. It's unponderable that you would take advantage of these precious programs, yet they're putting it at risk, all of it, by stealing the money. So it's our duty to preserve Medicaid, and what we're going to do is identify the scammers, which we have done in Minnesota. We've identified that they've hijacked, in particular, a certain part of the Minnesota Medicaid system. Said differently, and I'll just put the numbers out there, it's going to be $259 million of deferred payments for Medicaid to Minnesota, which we're announcing as I speak.
Well, that's a good start.
To Governor Walz and his team. And that's based on an audit of the last 3 months of 2025. Restated, $250 million is not going to be paid this month to Minnesota for its Medicaid claims. Now that's $250 million of money. That's your money. It's your taxpayer money.
Yeah, you already know how the Democrats are going to spend that. They're attacking Minnesota, innocent Minnesotans, and now they're not going to get the health care they need.
And these home and community-based services, which again
get
are
rid of the damn
services
fraud,
that are typically things you would do for your family, but for whatever reason your family's not there to provide them, are very hard to audit. And for that reason, there's been a lot of slippage. The guardrails have not been well maintained, and if you're not serious about the integrity of the program, you'll see these problems happening in your state, which is why Minnesota's not alone, although they're the first to receive this action. These high-growth areas of fraud are difficult to police, so we require the states to take these issues seriously. This $250 million deferment is hopefully going to get on the radar screen for the state of Minnesota and make sure they are responsive to our requests.
Well, I guess it depends on how deeply corrupt they are.
Agency would do.
Maybe they won't give up information no matter how much they withhold.
That we will give them the money, but we're going to hold it.
We shall see.
And only release it after they propose and act on a comprehensive corrective action plan to solve the problem. If Minnesota fails to clean up the systems, the state will rack up $1 billion of deferred payments this year.
Wow, dude.
Governor Walz has 60 days, sir, to respond to our letter. And
yeah, so are they actually going to respond with evidence, or are they just going to respond with name calling?
Providers and beneficiaries are worried about
I have a
getting
feeling
their
it's
money
probably
and
going to be the
services.
latter.
Please call your governor. These are services the governor
There
has
you
already
go.
paid for. We are just not reimbursing the state. And to make it clear, there is a rainy day fund in Minnesota, so we are very confident that people will not be hurt in Minnesota. This is not a problem with the people of Minnesota. It's a problem with the leadership of Minnesota and other states who do not take Medicaid preservation seriously. Any delay in services is going to be, should be laid at the seat of Governor Walz. I believe he will take this seriously. They're not the only state that's floundering. We have more announcements with other states coming soon. Second big issue has to do with Medicare.
Can't wait.
So that was Medicaid in Minnesota.
Sure, we can
takes
already
care of
list
our most
those
vulnerable
states.
populations. Medicare takes care of our seniors. Durable medical equipment. Most of you have not thought much about this category. These are the folks they serve wheelchairs, canes, they sell knee braces, catheters,
Yeah,
Foley
oxygen
catheters.
tanks and stuff.
Durable medical equipment suppliers, because they ship prostheses and these items.
Is that rife with fraud now too?
Here's what they do. They can steal the beneficiary number, and they never ship the product. They pretend to ship the product, but nothing ever gets sent out. So there's no cost of goods sold, there's no inventory, there's no payroll, no one works in the place, it's empty. But they generate millions of dollars of fake bills. There was a national DME fraud scheme that generated $1.1 billion recently in fraudulent orthotic brace orders. The beneficiaries whose numbers were stolen and used, they couldn't get those products. Imagine if you're on an insulin pump and someone steals your number and orders an insulin pump fictitiously, bills Medicare, and then you come and want to get this to deal with your diabetes. You don't get it. That actually happened. And what happens to those patients? They don't know if their blood sugar's so high or so low that they might die. That's the risks that we're allowing by not taking this seriously. So today, issue number 2 is we're announcing a 6-month national moratorium blocking all new enrollments for durable medical equipment, prostheses, orthotics, supplies across the board. These crimes are becoming a major source of fraudulent activity. And I'll just mention, Mr. Vice President, South Florida.
Yeah, the Democrats are saying they're attacking the health care.
Too much.
We had rehearsed this. So there are twice as many durable medical equipment suppliers in South Florida than McDonald's.
Wow.
And that's not because Secretary Kennedy is closing
Wow,
down
what a
McDonald's.
shocker. I mean, that is
Because
shocking.
the amount of fraud is so massive that it's easier to open one of these suppliers than open a bank account.
Regarding Minnesota,
which is why we're working
nothing's
with Secretary
surprising anymore.
Bessent. And part of the reason for this moratorium is it gives us time to be able to deal with these issues that have become massive. And if we just shut down South Florida, they'd all flee to California and to Texas.
Oh, for
So we
sure.
have to shut the
I'm
whole
sure they
country
would.
down. This unfortunate necessity is going to allow us to get on top of what we believe is billions of dollars of DME frauds. We've already stopped $1.5 billion of billing, but we need more time to shut down these bad guys. But it's going to be effective, and it's not going to touch the people who need these services. We have designed the system so that all the people who are already selling products can continue to sell products until we check them out, but no new DME enrollments, no ownership changes. All the things that fraudsters have done historically will be blocked. This way, we're preserving access, but we're not allowing tax dollars to be
Sounds like
stolen.
CMS might be
Now,
hiring
everybody
some
asks me, why
investigators.
is this so
If you're good at it, you might want to check out their website.
For fraud to assure the affordability of our nation. I'll just give you one example that we just finished dealing with. The Vice President's aware of this. We had skin substitutes that were generating, we believe this coming year, $23 billion in billing. Because we're able to shut that down to where it's supposed to be, because they have a role when used appropriately, every single senior in America, everyone, is going to get $132 extra money this year, just from that one thing that we shut down. That's the
Wow.
amount of money we're talking about.
Oh,
and it
it's
affects
probably
all of us.
staggering.
And to that,
Probably thousands.
because every one of you are affected, we want all of you to help us. So the third big announcement is we want to crush fraud by crowdsourcing ideas. We're issuing a request for information. We need and we want your help.
That's a
Vice
good idea.
President, myself, the President, Secretary Kennedy, all of us know that all of us are smarter than any one of us. So what can you do? We want your
Two
input on
words,
how to
Nick
prevent,
Shirley.
detect, and respond to fraud in government-funded healthcare. Whatever ideas you have, we're interested in. Our goal is to supercharge program integrity over the next 6 months. So we put in a request. That means providers and suppliers and payers and technology companies, patient advocates, beneficiaries. If you see fraud, you let us know. A state Medicaid director can show us patterns of fraud that we're
Yeah,
not
remember,
aware
there's
of. A
huge
provider can
incentives if
help
you're a
understand
whistleblower,
compliance
too.
burdens and
You
how
get
to deal with those
35%
more
of what they
effectively.
collect.
A patient advocate, get cracking.
I mean, that could be
making
millions
sure
of
that
dollars.
People are aware of fraud. And like we have done already this year by pulling in those kinds of ideas, we've stopped almost $6 billion from leaving the building, but that leaves a lot more out there that we can take advantage of. So over the next 60 days, the Crush Initiative, which just issued, is us asking you to help us build something better, to help the brave patriots out there who want to play a role to play a role. Call 1-800-HHS-TIPS if you see fraud, or just go to cms.gov/fraud. Those are simple, easy ways for you to help us address the problems the Vice President highlighted. God bless you all, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you.
Damn, dude.
Great job.
There's no question Dr. Oz is passionate about the fraud.
We'll
No
take
doubt
a few
about
questions. I didn't expect you to put me on the spot with Bobby Kennedy about my fast food habits, but here we are. Sir in the front.
Yeah, everybody's got fast food issues. Except me. I only eat fast food like probably 4 times a year.
Obligated funds under mandatory funding from Congress, such as Medicaid. And secondly, if you can tell us anything you know about the situation off the coast of Cuba, where there's a speedboat shot. We've been briefed on that. Americans were killed or injured.
Oh, dude, fuck off
Yeah,
with
so
that.
on the second thing, actually,
whatever, dude.
Marco briefed me about 15 minutes ago on it, but we don't know a whole lot of details, and so I'll defer to.
I mean, I'm sure
to
it's
the White
important
House to
off the
provide
coast of
more
Cuba.
updates as we get
Not
them.
related.
Certainly, a situation that we're monitoring. Hopefully, it's not as bad as we fear it could be, but can't say more because I just don't know more. On the question of the legal authorities, I mean, inherent in Congress's.
To be fair, it's definitely worth looking into.
Signing
Sounds bad.
Of the administration actually, we're the ones who spend this money. Congress appropriates it. We're the ones who actually make sure this goes to the people it ought to go to. And inherent in that is making sure that it only goes to the people that Congress says that it should go to. We shouldn't be sending money to fraudsters. We should not be sending money to companies that are committing mass fraud. We shouldn't be sending
Just
money
common sense.
to anybody that's trying to defraud the American taxpayer. So I know, Oz and his team, he's got the best team, I think, in healthcare anywhere in the private or the public sector. It's one of the great things I love about working with Dr. Oz is he's brought great people along with him, and congratulations on this. But I feel quite confident we have the legal authority to do this. And again, I'd reiterate, we don't want to do this. Like, we
yeah, of
don't
course it's
want
going to
be
get challenged in the courts.
situation
Of course.
Where the state of Minnesota
Left-wing judges are
is
going to be
being
clamoring
so
for that.
careless with federal tax dollars that we have to turn the screws on them a little bit so that they take this fraud seriously.
Yeah, because they're not.
Dr. Oz
They're not
said this.
doing
Tim
anything.
Walz could call him, could call me, could call anybody in the administration.
Kelly
and we'd give
Loeffler,
them
Small
60
Business
days to
Administration,
respond
she's
to
been
this.
breathing down his neck, and
All
he's
we
not giving her
need
anything.
The governor and the administration in Minnesota to do is something quite simple, which is to show that before you give Medicaid funds to somebody, you're taking seriously whether they provided the services that they say that they're providing. And the fact that there are so many people handing out millions and billions of dollars of federal Medicaid money without even confirming that they're doing the thing that they say that they're doing, it's a disgrace. It's a defrauding of the American taxpayer, and we're stopping it.
Yeah, it's not recent either. They've been doing this for
Two
decades.
questions. One, on the 60 days that Governor Walz has to respond, what exactly is the condition that he needs to meet for this funding to be released back to his state? I just wasn't really clear on that. And secondly, on
Paperwork.
Iran, while you're here, can
Proof,
you explain
evidence.
to the American people why the United States would need to strike Iran to stop them from getting a nuclear weapon?
Oh my God, dude, whatever, dude. To hell with your stupid freaking follow-up questions. No, what they need to do is show proof that they're providing oversight. That's what they've been demanding for weeks now. What are they doing in terms of oversight? What are they looking at to make sure that there isn't fraud happening? I mean, it's quite clear. They're not doing anything. Maybe that's why he's not providing any paperwork to anybody, because there is no paperwork with regard to regulation.
If the United States obliterated their enrichment program last summer?
Well, I'm not going to make any news on Iran.
Obviously, she got that question from Timu Obama.
Today, Caitlin, I'll let the president make those announcements. As you know,
It's because Iran is rebuilding, because that's what happens. If something gets destroyed that is of great national interest to your country, as soon as it gets obliterated, you start rebuilding it.
He is sending two of his best negotiators to Geneva tomorrow in order to continue to try to strike the best deal possible for the American people. But the principle is very simple. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. If they try to rebuild a nuclear weapon, that causes problems for us. And in fact, we've seen evidence that they have tried to do exactly that. So
they
the
didn't just
president
give up.
sending those
Of course they're gonna try to
negotiators
rebuild it.
Address that problem. As the president has said repeatedly, he wants to address that problem.
It's probably not the only
diplomatically,
facility.
but of
It was
course
just
the
their
president
primary.
has other options as well. On what we need to see from Governor Walz, I'll say something about that briefly and then turn it over to Dr. Oz. Look, it's actually pretty simple. What we want to see from the governor of Minnesota, from the entire administration there in Minnesota, is some affirmative steps to make sure that the people who are billing us for Medicaid services are actually providing those Medicaid services. The main source of fraud, whether it's a small business or a bigger company, is you have people who are billing the government millions, tens of millions, billions of dollars saying that they're providing a service, but there's no actual confirmation. There's no follow-up to ensure that they're actually providing those services. We want to see that follow-up from Minnesota. Dr. Oz, maybe you can speak to a little bit more about how exactly we want to see that.